Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Evolution Super Stream. This is a reverse room rumble, and if you're new here, you don't know what a reverse room rumble is. It's derived from the very original Reid's Royal Room Rumbles because I love alliteration for some reason. I just adore it. Basically, it's when I went into a room all by myself, and I had a number of rules for it. Number one, I wouldn't get a group together. Number two, I'd obey all the rules that they laid down in the room. Number three, I'd try to be as civil and polite as possible, and and four, I would argue with as many people as possible about sort of fundamentalist things. And actually, there was a rule I had that I wouldn't try to hijack the conversation. I wouldn't try to make it about anything else but what their room was about. So I had a few rules on this, and someone suggested that I reverse it up. And so here we are, reversing it up, making it all about coming into my room and see if they can argue things. And today I have a special guest for you. You know him, you love him. It's AJ. It's Atheist Junior. How you doing, buddy? Are you ready? Yeah, you're right. I've just got a picture of AJ, and I'm pretending. In actual fact, I'm pretending I have.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. How you doing? Sorry, I really should have checked if you were done and I could bring you in, but I just
decided it's okay.
Surprise.
Well, this is what happens when we live our lives on YouTube. These things are just,
that is
magic of live broadcasting.
Yeah, and it's great to see everybody. And I have another guest in chat. It's Doc Dino. So
Aloha.
This is the Evolution Super Show. How are you guys doing? AJ, how have you been?
I've been really excellent. I've been trying to put out a lot of content on my channel, and because I had a time, like I guess towards the end of last year, where I just sort of was losing some of the motivation I had to do YouTube, but I felt like I've gotten reinvigorated by doing a lot of streams with people who are interesting to talk to, stimulating intellectual conversations, and just make jokes. And it's improved my mood, and it's improved my motivation to make content. So I'm doing good, and my channel is it's always a blessing to have the amount of good that I do. I'm thankful every single day for it.
So I think that like YouTube, it's harder than it seems. It really is. Like, people think, oh yeah, it's just this lark kind of thing that's really easy. It's actually a lot harder than you would think. Sort of that sort of keeping your nose to the grindstone and producing content a fair bit. I think that if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're quickly going to get burnt out, like really burnt out. So I'm glad that I really enjoy those conversations and those kind of things. There's stuff that I hate about it, like I hate editing, I hate doing certain things, but you get that in every job. But for the most part, I love the conversations, I love the debates, I love the different opinions and stuff. So I really enjoy it, and I think you've got to be honest with you.
I hate scheduling stuff. I hate scheduling more than anything, because it's just difficult, like trying to, like when we were setting up our the stream we did on the Eric Hogan sex ed video. It took a long time to come together, just because you have three people with different schedules.
Oh yeah.
It's just no
that
fun.
was rough.
And different time zones.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. I guess somebody sort of told me once, and I think that's true, that you sort of need to have something that you can do by yourself. Like, relying on others is good, and collaborations are always great, but I think you've got to be that sort of independent as well. But I'm glad that you've sort of revigorated and stuff, AJ. I know that I think that Hoven debate really bummed you out, because he was disgusting and horrible, and it's very easy to take that to heart. And I think that I've felt that way before, and yeah, that sucks. That horrible people. I mean, I've just had an attack video made about me. We were talking about it my last night, your this morning, and it's really lame. Luckily, The Proverbs guy one.
Oh, Proverbs did one about you?
The one where it's me, you, and Grayson.
Yeah.
I've classified that video as one of the worst YouTube videos I've ever seen.
It's pretty bad. Yeah.
Being in that open mic was bad enough in the first place because of just, I think it was the worst moderation I've ever seen in any format like that, and it was ridiculous, the level of bias. But then to truly confirm the amount of bias shown in was watching that video, and that was done by the hand of Achilles himself, and I won't do the accent because Aiden's not here to do it, but I find it's you can point at in that video. Like I think one of my favorites was probably when Grayson gets interrupted mid-sentence by Donnie, and it said, well, but he was pointing out that you were lying, so it's okay. Okay. So,
and he wasn't lying in the slightest. Of
course not. My favorite moment was when I saw that they had actually pixelated me doing this. They pixelated it and censored it. Like,
it was bad. It was bad, but I found it funny. I found it really funny, and I don't know. I don't even think it's worthy of a response, to be honest with you. I just find it funny. But Doc, how are you doing, mate? Like, I'm glad you came in. I'm so happy to have you on. I feel like you haven't been on for ages, and that's great that you are on the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, thanks for having me. Life's gotten busier since I started working with fossils.
Yeah, well, I can imagine.
But I'm doing good. Trying to get things figured out. I'm currently, actually, I should check my email. I've been emailing with a couple paleontology PhDs from around the world, and I need to see if they've said anything back. As for how I'm doing fine. Just not doing a whole lot today, honestly. In regards to content creation, because sorry, y'all were talking about that a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Honestly, what I struggle with most, it's not editing. It's I hate the sound of my own voice, and I'm a real perfectionist when it comes to audio. So whenever I start editing my own voice, it irritates me to all hell, and I have to stop.
I don't know if we've had this conversation before, but do you know there's kind of like a scientific reason that people don't like the sound of their own voice? Have you heard about that?
I have not.
Yeah, apparently it's like a twofold thing where when you talk, there are vibrations that happen in your skull and the small bones in your inner ear that sort of contribute to the sensory senses that you get. Also, when you hear your voice normally, you're hearing it coming from your mouth to your ears, but when it's from a speaker, it's coming from the opposite direction, so it's going to sound very different for those two reasons. I saw they've actually I think maybe Sony or Skullcandy has designed some headphones that actually work by that process where they vibrate like your skull to sort of increase, like, I guess, the bass frequency or something like that. It's pretty interesting, but I will say that I've gotten used to the sound of my own voice. It doesn't bother me anymore. And I don't know how long you've been doing YouTube, but for me, I'm not bothered by it because I've heard my voice so many times. I watch my videos back so many times that it just I'm not bothered by it. So
yeah, I mean, I started last summer, but it's still like it always gets to me without fail.
I think I'm kind of in between. I really hated the sound of my own voice when I started, but at the moment I'm like, yeah, it still annoys me, but I'm kind of getting adjusted. I think it is just something that changes over time. I don't know. I always used to think my voice was irritating, and just hated it. But it is what it is. It's like your body. There's not a lot you can do to change it, right? So
Yeah,
you know, that's fine. Yeah,
fair. And
I'm
I
sorry to hear
guess
that.
like I
Yeah,
well, I also have a
yeah,
lot of trouble like it. I have troubles with intonation, like putting the right tone into my voice, and
yes.
like whenever I record something, I have to record it 4 or 5 times sometime to get the right
Oh yeah,
emphasis on the
Oh,
right
that's good.
syllable.
that's why I don't like pre-recorded stuff, because I'll have to do like 20 takes, and then just ends up being like kind of frustrating. I much prefer just live stuff. Like, oh, fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've also got the problem of people hassling my accent and things as well. You know, like I get that a lot. My English accent, apparently, and people sort of saying, "Hey, he's just trying to sound smart." It's like, no, this is my actual accent. It just comes out like this. Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about, because it isn't a particularly sort of, you know, that rich an accent. It's not like some kind of, you know, rich English accent or something. It's very, very strange. But I'm glad you're doing okay, and I'm sorry to hear that you're frantically busy. So maybe I should get this show on the road. Today we're talking evolution, and the thing that I put out was people, maybe Doc or AJ, or I think Grayson said he'd be coming. Not sure what happened to him. Life may have gotten busy as well. It does happen. So we were going to just present one sort of really good evidence of evolution. I probably will cover ERVs, because I'm really familiar with that, and that's the best evidence that I can possibly think of. And I've got a couple of papers here that I can point people to. They are a little dense, but, you know, in all things considered genetics, they're pretty easy to read. You know, like probably couldn't read it in a night, but it's pretty easy to get through. So I was wondering if there was a topic that you guys wanted to cover, that you guys wanted to see.
I mean,
A
nothing
topic I could
concrete, but
say.
I do have some possibilities.
Okay. Well, first off, what I'll do is I'll link a really good paper that I found, which was from the National NIH, National Library of Medicine, evidence supporting biological evolution. And it's just a rundown. I'm going to put it in chat. So, like, we cite our sources here mostly. And yeah, so this is an open invite for anybody to come in, talk about it with us. What I'd really love is some people that I've sort of dropped into and sort of challenged them on their beliefs to drop in and challenge us or answer questions of how this would work under their worldview, kind of thing. Even though I hate using that term, like, how would it work under your worldview? It's like, well, I get what you're saying. But it seems that nobody, you know, I know that the Proverbs guys, they've invited them because I've hassled them in their rooms a fair few. I don't think anyone's got the cojones to actually come in, which is kind of disappointing, to be honest with you, because all of the guys over at Proverbs and a lot of other people have told me how easy it is to do what I do, like go into a room with people that disagree with you.
Yeah. Well, you make it look easy.
Well, I'm starting to think it's not easy at all. I'm starting to think it is quite challenging, which is what I've said. I think it's quite challenging. But the whole point was, hey, if it's so easy, come and do it.
Well, hopefully you'll get someone.
Well,
they just closed down a stream on the Proverbs channel.
Oh, and just before we start, I Killed Earl, who is a friend of the channel, is starting up a new channel with Justin Yahooligan. I might give that a link, but if you want to jump in on it, they haven't produced any content yet, but if you want a front row seat to that channel starting up, where they'll probably be doing interviews and things like that. So thanks for letting me know. Thanks for the, thank you. Okay.
So ERVs, what are they? How do they work?
Well, endogenous retroviruses. So endogenous retroviruses are the fragments of basically viruses that infect our cells. That's what retroviruses are. that are remnants of those viruses infecting our cells and staying with our DNA. So why is it called? Well, retroviruses basically just refer to a virus that transcribes its RNA into our DNA, and then it gets the host organism to transcribe it as part of their DNA. So it's retrotranscription. So what it's basically doing is the virus is using us as a carrier to replicate themselves. For instance, the HIV works like this. It basically replicates itself into our cells and then keeps replicating. Now, when it infects a cell, there's a number of positions, and I did have a paper on this, so I might go through it. There's a number of positions on the cell it could infect. So if you're infected with HIV, for instance, and I'll keep comparing it because it's the retrovirus that most people are familiar with, there's a number of positions that it can infect, right? So it can affect anywhere on the cell. Now, they will have target positions that they do prefer. And Dan, welcome to the stage. How are you doing?
Hello, how's everybody going?
Yeah, good.
I just actually came over, to listen. I really am interested in most of the things that you talk about. Problem is, I probably don't have cojones to come in here. I'm just kind of too dumb. But this subject, I have no clue on. So I just wanted to say hi.
Oh, hello.
And I guess I don't know if I'm one of the Proverbs guys yet or not. I did a couple shows over there, but
okay, well, let's say you are. Let's say you are. Sure.
Go ahead, but I'll just listen. You keep that going, and if there's a subject I like, I'll.
Oh, look. Yeah, I'm really poking fun at people, Dan. I apologize, mate. I'm honestly, if you just want to ask questions, and Doc, Atheist Junior, and I, we've done enough debates and read up on enough literature that we'll probably be able to give you some sort of answer. There's a ton of papers. I think that sort of biological evolution is one of the most well-documented theories in the history of mankind. Like, there are hundreds of thousands of papers on it. So if you want to ask questions and sort of ask how things work, it might be really good to have somebody, to sort of investigate what people's questions are. Also, in chat, don't be afraid to throw questions in as well. More than happy to at least try and answer them. And we can sort of sort of explain why it is that 90-something% of scientists do accept this evolutionary theory.
Mark, would you mind if I played the part of Satan's attorney and just asked a couple questions on what you've talked about so far?
Well, I mean, you don't have to play a Satan's attorney to do that. You can just say, hey, it might be interesting to know why this.
Well, I was going to try to work on my creationist impression, but fair enough. How do you know that these are viral elements? Like, how do you know they came from viruses?
So they've got the structure of a virus. So there's, and I can go through that in another paper that I've got. And this is the paper that I wanted to reference for people. It's called Demystified Human Endogenous Retroviruses. It's the one that really helped me understand it. It is written for, I think, biology students kind of thing, but it's dense, but it is understandable kind of thing. So it's called Demystified Human Endogenous Retroviruses. And so they have a structure, and we'll share this tab. This is the structure, the LTR, GAG, POL, ENV, LTR. And we find this in all retroviruses. This is the structure they have, just as our DNA sequence is the structure of our DNA. This will be found in our DNA, and also it'll be found in the RNA when it before it retro transcribes into our DNA. The other reason we know that these are retroviruses is because we've taken one of these sequences from humans, HERVK, I believe it is, virus, called Phoenix, and we've actually turned it back into a virus. So it's a sequence from the DNA. We've reactivated it by doing gene editing, and it's turned back into a very weak virus. Like, it didn't have a lot of, obviously it's not sort of in its original state, but we've turned it back into a virus, and it can infect other cells, and then those cells start human cells, and then those human cells start producing more viruses, right? So it starts doing what viruses always do, which is retroactively copy itself into DNA and then start producing more of itself.
Okay.
So we know that those are retroviruses. Apart from this structure, and the only thing we've ever seen with this structure is viruses. They don't. That's the only thing they are.
So there's nothing else that could explain these structures.
No, nothing. I mean, you could, like, I believe that Donnie from Standing for Truth argues that, they may have been designed into it, but that doesn't really fit, because there's these structures. Most of them don't do anything. Like, most of them are inert. They're just shut down. They don't do a thing. And usually are non-expressed, basically. So there's, it's all sort of, you could say, hey, they're designed, but it's incredibly unlikely. Two, it'd be a massive coincidence that we have structures in our DNA that resemble viruses. And don't forget, we're familiar with things like HIV, which we can see copy themselves into our DNA. And in fact, we've seen those HIV viruses, and I've pointed out a paper to Donnie where we've seen a HIV virus infect somebody, shut down, and then have a beneficial function for the host. It prevents the host from getting other viruses. So we know, like, the chances that this would be just a design thing that happened to look like viruses, that we've seen them infect other animals, we've seen them be brought back to life. Like, the evidence is overwhelming that this is the remnants of viruses in the human genome.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, do we see any type of change? Do we see any type of modern change in these ERVs? The way, like, how we saw certain bacteria that, it was able to eat, the myelinase thing, which is a modern change. Do we see anything like that? Like, not that dramatic, but just changes in ERVs, or are they sort of just set the way they've been since the past?
No, we do see changes. As I said, we've seen the HIV virus. Grayson sent me a paper on it as well. I'll just see if I can find it.
The reason I mentioned that is just because I don't know how you can really say that these things are designed when they're changing, so drastically in our modern times. It seemed like if God created the universe and created everything in it, it would stand to reason that he created it one way and that was it. Of course,
don't forget that
they give it, the ability to change, but still, that's like
right. Well, don't forget that sort of there's no people that sort of say evolution doesn't happen at all, that changes aren't happening. It's sort of that creationists, especially young Earth creationists, believe there's an upper limit on that change. So I don't know why, with obviously mutations happen. Like, nobody's arguing that point except for maybe some very fringe cases. Why those mutations can't happen in ERVs is beyond me, because it's just the same as any other part of our DNA. It's not like something special that can't have mutations happen to it. And we've seen those mutations happen in like retroviruses. We've seen them become actually beneficial for the host. So that idea that, well, it's designed, I mean, you can say that, but it's kind of along the lines of, well, you've never seen every single birth, so how do you know that a stork didn't bring a baby at some point? Like, we see all of these things happening. The logical and the best conclusion is that they're endogenous retroviruses, apart from the fact that they have exactly the structure of endogenous retroviruses.
Well, yeah, I would say creationists, they don't deny that animals can change and mutations happen, but Kent does deny, I think, stellar evolution, because he seems to argue that God created the stars on, I don't know which day he
Well,
did, but
yeah, okay,
and
hold on a sec. Hold on. No, atheist. I realize you're doing devil advocate as well. It might not be that helpful, but when we're talking about evolution,
oh, sorry. Well,
when we're talking, no, hold on. When we're talking about evolution, most people or everybody understands you to be talking about biological evolution.
Sure.
That's what you're understanding. People that sort of go to stellar evolution, I don't think they're being honest, because you're really talking about biological evolution, or the theory of why biodiversity exists, why we're there's similarities between animals, why there are similarities between animals and other things. I don't think that we're really going to get onto stellar evolution and stuff like that. It's
I mean, I was just mentioning it. I wasn't trying to derail the get off topic or anything. I was just mentioning.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. It's just, I want to make clear that we're on the topic of biological evolution. And I missed stuff, Ember, for 10 months. Fact, there are more dinos alive today than humans. That is true, because there are more chickens alive today than humans. That is 100% true. Okay, yeah, well, I mean, you're legion and get eaten all the time and just get Robin takes a
the
shot.
most successful animal on Earth. Well, most successful.
Well, it depends how you define successful, really. I mean, that's a really bad question, because it all depends on how you're defining successful. Like, you could say humans, but I think it would probably be bacteria, to be honest with you. Bacteria are
vertebrates.
Okay, well, I did. You added that later. Okay, and Martin Kamau. I'm really sorry. I'm butchering names today. The Skeptics Guide just put out a vid. All you need to know about the peer review process. You'd find it interesting. Yeah, absolutely. That does sound interesting. Okay, and I Killed Earl gifted 5 readerships. Thank you so much, Earl. And Robin, of course. So Earl got Sam, Kitty Strafe, Tyler West, Razor Robertson, and Vesta Freya. Congratulations. Enjoy your emotes. Have fun. Bonk somebody. All that stuff. Winner. There we go. And thank you so much, Robin. Robin's a big friend of the channel. Absolutely amazing. Actually, I really want to get to have her on sometime and have a chat with her, because she really is an awesome person with a very interesting background in witchery and magic and stuff. It's actually something I got to do. Anyway, I'm sorry about that, guys. Where was I? Any other questions?
I just wanted to say I was going by, like, the evolutionary definition of fitness. Like, how many of your children go on to reproduce? Like, chickens have by far the highest population, and they are arguably the fittest vertebrate alive today.
Yeah, but that's only because of humans. I mean, their origin was jungle hens. Oh, did AJ drop
Jungle
out?
fowl, yeah.
Jungle fowl, yeah.
To be fair, you never specified that they had to do it on their own.
Well, that's true. Okay. Yeah, and jungle fowl are very different than chickens. Your second stream, good stuff. All right. Sorry, I'm a bit out of sorts at the moment. I do apologize. I came down with a cold. Oh, Bumblebee, I'm so happy to see you. How are you, darling?
I'm doing good. I heard you guys talking about domestication of chickens, and I'm like, I can't miss this. So
Okay,
here I
yeah.
am.
It's all chickens all day today. That's what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, so we know these things are viruses. We know they are. Like the evidence for it is overwhelming, and you can wave away sort of saying, hey, no, they're designed, but at that point you're engaged in pseudoscience, because what you're doing isn't going with the evidence to find the conclusion. At that point, what you're doing is you've got the conclusion, you're trying to fit the evidence to what you believe, and that's basically pseudoscience. So this is sort of the structure of them.
Hold on, did AJ just disappear as soon as I came in here?
Yeah.
Did I scare him away?
No,
AJ?
he disappeared before. He's
I've been sitting in the back
offline.
room for a minute. I was okay.
Yeah, he kept night too.
Yeah, I think AJ would tell me if he had a problem with us. Like, trust me, he's not shy about telling me. Yeah, so don't worry about that. Oh, hi, Caterpillar. So good to see you. My favorite bug. Lots of love, Caterpillar.
Excuse me.
No, she's
my favorite.
Sorry, they are my favorite bug. They are my favorite bug because they give
Caterpillar's
me
a sweetheart. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So this structure we know. So what I was going to point to was do endogenous retroviruses have some kind of preference for where they land, and they do. But what you've got to realize is that the massive range of preferences they have. So say, for instance, the blue dots are all one retrovirus, right? So this is the massive scale of where they can insert randomly into the gene. And of course, this is the human genome minus the second X or Y kind of thing. So there is no question that there are a lot of sites they can enter. Hey, Rodney, thank you so much for joining. Welcome.
So y'all are doing ERVs and I had to join.
Yeah, well, we're not just doing ERVs. We're basically the usual debaters and panelists that do talk about this stuff. I asked them to grab one thing that they could present as one of the evidences for evolution, and sort of just as an educational thing, and try to answer questions. I know that none of us are biologists. Grayson was going to be here, and I believe he is a biologist. But
I have a biology degree.
Oh, you do?
Grayson
Okay,
has biochem.
Biochem, right.
Yeah.
So when I say none of us are biologists, I'm not including Doc, apparently, because okay, fantastic. So these points of entry that they have, there is a lot of them, right? So basically where the, and these are just preferences, they're not definitely going there, it's just preferential stuff. So there can be a lot of different entry points for these ERVs. This is, we've seen this through modern retroviruses like HIV. And here's the thing, when you get infected with, say, HIV, it'll hit one of these sites at different cells in your body. So the way they work is that they copy themselves into your cells, and then that cell produces more, right? So basically what happens is you have all of your different cells that are getting infected, and that's called a somatic infection, when it's basically being transferred between your cells. They're basically...
Are they hijacking the hardware to run their own software, basically?
Basically, yeah. And we will make a couple of sort of software analogies here, but you've got to understand that software and DNA and RNA are very different, incredibly different.
It's totally a language, Mark. Nope, it's written by Jesus on our DNA.
Here's the thing. There's some uncanny similarities. Like, nobody's going to argue there are uncanny similarities, but they're very different. And mostly the major difference, I would say, when I'm talking about ERVs is mutations, right? So software doesn't try to make errors. In fact, when you copy software, if it has an error, it will fail. That is not how it works with ERVs and things like that. So like a software virus, it'll infect a place and then it will replicate from there. Like, so it will use the system to make more of itself. So this means that different places in your cells will be the infection point for an ERV that's generated somatically or transferred between cells, because every time it sends off more little RNA packets to infect other cells, it'll hit different spots. Now, that is true except in one case and one case alone, and that's when the virus hits a germline. And by germline, we mean the sperm or the egg. So what happens when it hits a sperm or an egg is that, because when a egg, just say you have an ovum in a womb and it starts growing, as people generally do when they're embryos and in a womb, it'll divide into 2, then 4, then 8, 16, and keep doubling from there. If that very, very first cell is infected, that mutation, the DNA that is from the virus that infected it, is going to be duplicated as well. As it splits and copies all of that DNA, the virus will be in the same place in every single cell of the body. Okay, so it's like if you have an original copy of software and like, just say a computer virus comes in and infects a random place on your code, right? If all of those places are different in different copies of, you know, Microsoft Word, because some people love using that as an analogy, if they're in different places, we know that it was transferred somatically. We know that another copy gave it to it. But if you have the same infected virus in the same place, we know that one copy was infected, and that was multiplied as we copied the original, right? Makes sense, doesn't it? And Andrew Cumming, I recognize your avatar. Welcome. So that's how we know, and that's called endogenization, when it basically is the same place. The germline's infected and it becomes part of the same place. Now, the thing is that all of some animals, for instance, have the same ERV sequences, right, in the same place. So we know they weren't infected somatically. They weren't given it by somebody else, some other animal. It just can't happen. We know that the germline must have been infected. And what we do know is that the best explanation for it, in fact, the only explanation that can account for it, is that germline was infected when before the animal diversified. So, for instance, I believe chimpanzees, we share 208 out of the 211 endogenous retroviruses in their DNA. It accounts for like 1%. Someone's got some background noise. I'm not sure who. It's probably you, Rodney, because you're the only one with. So we know that because if they were infected by something else, it would be in different places in their DNA. The only explanation is that organism used to be the same organism. It got infected. That retrovirus copied itself entirely to every single cell in the body, in the primitive simian's body. One diversified into chimpanzees and one diversified into humans. That is the only possible way it could have happened. You can say, hey, a god designed it like that, but that isn't what we see. Like we've got to be able to explain this through science, and this is the only explanation we can have. And it fits.
Oh, good. I got a question. Good. I finally. Oh, sorry.
Sure. No, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So so it would have been the virus would have affected an ancestor of chimpanzees and humans, and then at that point it went dormant. Is that what you're?
Well, it can go dormant. So basically, usually viruses are detrimental, not because they're evil or they mean to be, but because they have lasting effects that are detrimental for the host, like cancers, for instance, can be caused by HERVs. They will be subject to mutation, though, and not only can they go dormant, which some of them are, but they can also have beneficial effects if they mutate in such a way to provide a beneficial effect. Hello?
Did we lose you?
Did we lose you, Dan?
I'm here. I thought you were actually lost because I lost. I got most of it, I think. And as you guys would probably say, I'm usually lost. But okay, so and probably the last was the part. No, because clarification, and they can mutate just like other viruses were, but how did so what I understood, and this is, I guess, if I just tell you what I understood, then you can correct it, was that it would have been an ancestor, went dormant, and then when it went into the chimpanzees or went into humans, it was no longer an active virus.
Well,
but you're saying
it's no longer an active virus before there were even chimpanzees and humans.
correct, yeah. So the ancestor, and that's what would trace it back. Evolution, biologic evolution. There, I'll help those people that want it clarified every time. So biological evolution then is that when we see them in both species, then you say, okay, they have to be related. Is that how I'm understanding it?
The only way to explain how they got there was that because it is downright impossible for these viruses to be the exact same virus in the exact same place 208 times in both our genomes. Like you have a better chance of me choosing a grain of sand on a beach randomly and for you to just pick up a random one and it's going to be the same one. Like it's impossible.
If I recall, it's even worse than that. There was Gibbon, Erica has brought this up before. There was a paper on primates and their shared ERVs. Apparently, the chances of them sharing all of the ERVs they share just by random chance is lower than picking one atom at random out of the 10 to the 80th power estimated atoms in the known universe.
Yeah, and it gets even worse when you expand it, because there's some ERVs that we share with fish. Exact same ERV, exact same location in the genome. So it kind of is this. So we talk a lot in evolution about a nested hierarchy, like this idea that you have a hierarchy of one kind of organism, one sort of genus, and it splits off and then goes into a nest of different types, and then they split off and go into a nest like of different types. So this nested hierarchy, we can also follow that in the ERVs themselves. We can see the hierarchy of where they split off, and it's duplicated with the ERVs. What's amazing about this is it fits perfectly into our understanding of evolution. Like it fits perfectly that the mammals, for instance, all have this ERV which allowed them to produce milk, which is the SIRH group of retroviruses. But that isn't found in, say, monotremes, which is platypus and echidna, because they lay eggs. right? So some people will say, hey, if we didn't have these ERVs, we wouldn't be able to survive. But that's not true, because there's animals without these ERVs that still survive. We don't have to have them to survive, but they do provide a benefit of some sort.
Now, did you say that was for actually producing milk? Sorry.
Yeah.
You said the manatees don't, and somebody else, but
no, monotremes. Manatees are afrotheres. That's a different group. Monotremes are, if he was talking about nested cladistics, it's easier to think about them as splitting off at the root of the mammalian clade. That's kind of, it's not really completely accurate, but it's a good way to think of it for the thought experiment Mark's explaining here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
but that's
the egg laying. Yeah.
Yeah, monotremes are very similar to mammals. They're very, very similar. So there's only two, a few different species, but only two like sort of genus of monotremes left on Earth. And that is the platypus, which lays eggs, and the echidna, which lays eggs.
Oh, the platypus. That's the one you said.
Five species of echidna, right?
Yeah, something like that.
They just discovered a new one. It's
really
exciting stuff. Yeah. So I could go off about that. So stop me right now, Mark. Go back to the topic.
Their babies are so cute. They're called puggles, and they're the cutest things ever. Like, seriously, I'm not even joking.
So my question then, so you said the ERV did you say that produced the milk? What did that produce in mammals?
Yeah, there's an ERV responsible for placental development, and I believe that there's another one responsible for producing lactase, I think. But I'm more familiar with the placental one. So if you want to maybe focus on that one.
Lactase is MALR. So it's most of the studies were done on mice for that one. But the genes, how they're mapping genomes of different animals and different species. When they're mapping the genomes of mammals, this same overlap appears that they've studied it in detail in mice. So they've studied the ERV in detail and understand sort of its structure and its origins in the mouse lineage, and then they can go and look at all the other genomes that they've tested at apes, at horses, at other rodents, and compare that information to find out how far back they split off from each other.
Very cool. And then the other question would be the one we share with fish. So everybody on the north side of the fish evolution has the same thing. So chimpanzees would also, and
yep.
Okay, that was clarification that I didn't quite understand too.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd have to find the name of it. I don't have it handy, but there is one that we share with fish. In fact, there's a few that we. But the interesting
Fox A2
is
the air breathing one, right? That's the one that's found on one fish. Yeah.
Yeah, there is one though we still do share with even the lobed fin fishes kind of thing.
Oh, good. So we then just means mammals,
or humans.
Correct, which we are. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Yep.
Very good. Very interesting. Sorry, I can't argue with you, Mark, but
no, that's okay.
No, I'm totally teasing. I really enjoy your calm way of saying stuff.
Yeah,
well, don't worry,
I find it.
Okay.
I find it absolutely fascinating that we have these incredibly damaging viruses that sort of infect animals at the germline, get mutated, and we can actually co-opt them to help us, and help us a lot, like insanely a lot. It's actually quite fascinating. It's it's really interesting, and we do get instances of where these can sort of turn back on, and it's absolutely devastating. So this is sort of as we've started to investigate this is where people go, oh well, evolution isn't used in science, kind of thing, like we don't do anything with it. And it's like, yeah, we absolutely do. This is the kind of thing that we investigate to find out why diseases actually happen, like why somebody is born with some kind of disease from birth, kind of thing. And sometimes it is these viruses turning back on and maybe causing cancer or causing things. This is one of the pillars of medicine. I know that some creationists sort of say it's not, but that and evolution and germ theory are the two pillars of our modern medical system.
Mark, I found excuse me, I found a thing here is talking about ERVL. It's a family of ERVs that some fish and birds share with mammals.
Yes,
that may be what you were talking about. While we don't share all of them, I think uniformly across all three different species, there's quite a few. Clades, yes. Sorry.
And
I'm brain farting right now.
You're okay. No worries.
We probably have to explain clades as well. Maybe you want to do that, Bree. Maybe explain clades.
Okay, so for the longest time we followed the Linnaean system of ranked cladistics, right, or ranked taxonomics. Now that gives you your species, genus, family, order, so on and so forth, and that system has continued to fail for the last 200 years as we've built more and more layers and levels to it, to the point where now it's more relevant to use those as more like goalposts to stack our different nested clades together. As Mark was talking about nested cladistics earlier, that's basically groups within groups within groups within groups. Each of those groups is a clade, and you could say a species is a clade, a genus is a clade, but there's unranked clades too, which really kind of muddies up the water. We have names for a lot of them, but some of them we just don't, and some of them we have scientific names for, but no common names for. So you'll have your familiar species that are used more as a reference to tradition, and not tradition is not the right word. What would you say? Protocol or just the standard protocol that they have in place for it. Other than that, all of this is just circles drawn on a gradient around a group of organisms to say they're related and they're inside this circle, they're this clade. I don't know if that clears anything up there or not. If not, I think I'd like to let Doc give it a shot, because Doc is also very versed in explaining evolution and.
Oh, sorry, I was reading something. What's going on?
I'm trying to elaborate on what a clade is compared to the old Linnaean system.
Okay. A clade is a designation of organisms that are more closely related to each other than they are to anything else. Using mammals as an example, you have the clade Perissodactyls, which is like horses, rhinos, and tapirs. They are all more closely related to each other than they are to any other mammal. And clades they become more specific as you go down. So like all
horses would be a clade too. Yeah.
So all horses are more closely related to other horses than they are to rhinos and tapirs. And you keep getting more specific.
Yeah, close related to zebras and donkeys than they are to rhinoceroses, right? And then the zebras are maybe closer related to each other than they are to the horses or the donkeys. And then one species of the zebra would be the outgroup, or sometimes called a sister clade, or the other two would be more closely related to each other. It's almost always stacked that way, right?
Yes, and like certain ranks will have different names. So like clade is just kind of a placeholder, but you've probably heard the terms species or family or order, genus, kingdom, etc.
And
Those are
different
sort of like landmarks within the
and
clades.
different species within a clade can fill the same niche, the same like environmental niche in different areas.
Generally, that's a
but
little
they-
more complicated.
Not always.
They can overlap though if they fill different. I'm getting into niche partitioning now. I don't want to confuse the
Yeah,
issue.
that's a bit more complicated than just organization.
Mm-hmm.
I do just want to say, since someone brought up Linnaeus earlier, that just based on morphological data alone, Linnaeus got surprisingly large number of what we call the modern clades, or the broad sweeps of the
Down to
modern
the order.
hierarchy, correct? So kudos for him for how much he did get right. Of course, he got some things wrong that we've corrected since then, but
Yeah.
Because
It's like
science
people
is a
act like
correcting mechanism.
Yep.
people
That's
act like
basically my presentation on ERVs kind of thing. That's basically my presentation. Just what I was going to go through. Does anyone else want to present something next? I mean, we can continue the conversation. Don't get me wrong. I just would like to go through some other evidence.
I actually had a question for you, Mark, about a specific aspect of ERVs, if you don't mind. Have you seen, since you, I think, mentioned SFT earlier, have you seen one of SFT's recent streams, or I think it was actually me in the comments and maybe a few others, he was talking about ERVs, and of course he brought up his challenge that we haven't discovered any polymorphic or relatively recent ERVs that have any co-opted functions. And of course I brought one up to him that I think Dr. Zach Hancock has brought up as well. And it was just amusing kind of how how much he shifted and turned from his original challenge from there. But I was just curious if you had seen the video.
No, I didn't catch it. I usually don't watch a lot of Donnie's stuff. I got to be honest with you. I usually find it's not big on information and more big on claims, basically. I find that he makes a lot of claims that he can't substantiate, unfortunately. So
it was the latter half of a Kent Hovind stream, so I don't blame you there.
Hey, I have a question for Doc. If y'all are done with the Donnie.
Well, do you want to take us through, like, just quickly what that paper is that you're talking about? I mean, Grayson sent me a paper, and I'm struggling to find it now.
I don't have the paper offhand, but it is a specific example of a polymorphic that is not completely fixed in the population of a certain strain of mice, I guess. And it actually performs a useful function for those mice in terms of preventing other viruses from invading the genome. So kind of what we would expect viruses to do, and also comparable to all of the other examples SFT has brought up in the past. So I think it was, like I said, Dr. Zach Hancock, if anyone isn't subscribed to him, that brought that up in his video on ERVs, and I haven't really heard much of a response from SFT on that. So I just brought it up, and things went south from there.
Yeah, so mouse strain-specific polymorphic provirus functions as cis-regulatory element lead to epigenomic and transcriptic variations. Here, I've got the paper here. So this is an example of where an ERV has actually become beneficial, kind of thing. And I presume that the goalposts were just shifted, essentially, to, well, it's got to also be fixed, or also do this, or also do that. And that
he basically shifted it to, it has to play in a role in embryonic development, like we see in the ERV co-opted for placental development. So it was amusing to watch how we shifted the goalpost from there.
And that is a hallmark of pseudoscience, that when something comes up, that the goalposts shift to say, hey, you can't demonstrate me wrong. Like, we see it in flat earthers all the time. You know, oh, well, you've got to have footage of this, we provide it, and then to go, oh no, you've got to have, you know, your footage of this, you've got to take it yourself, kind of thing. Stuff like that. Yeah. Thank you,
I
Andrew.
believe
Really
the
appreciate it
fragment
because I
was
was actually
called
looking for that. Anyway.
FV4, if I remember correctly. It was a specific fragment that was being discussed.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
hope anyone listening, if SFT brings up that challenge again, you know better now. That's
And
been
there is
dealt
the
with.
paper to prove it. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's challenged Erica and she's debunked him multiple times. It doesn't stop him
That's
from
true,
reissuing the challenge, with slight variation. But I mean, even it doesn't stop him from just reissuing it as is, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, he's claimed to have solved the heat problem on no less than 4 or 5 occasions, which is strange. So I'm not, that's why. Don't get me wrong, I like Donnie. I just, I just don't think he's providing anything particularly useful as far as argumentation is concerned.
Provides some entertainment value at least, but yeah, he doesn't.
Fair enough.
He's kind of like Kent Hovind in that regard.
Well, I have challenged Donnie to an ERV debate on multiple occasions, and he declines every time. So, but I would like to see. A lot of people would like to see that, to be honest with you. But yeah. But I mean, I'm not a debate bro. I'm not gonna, but it's kind of. I would like to do that.
Wait a second. You are not a debate bro. Hold on, just a second here.
I'm trying so hard to be a debate bro, and when someone says no, I don't want to debate, I'm trying so hard to go, oh, you coward, you got you're afraid, you're scared kind of thing. I'm trying so hard. Well,
I've never seen you actually do that,
Be
but
careful,
you do
the next step is threatening people.
You do like to say, hey, let's debate about that. Let's talk about that. Let's have the conversation
We've done that
to
Kent Hovind before. Like when you've joined a live stream after a debate, you've done that to him.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to because I see that the people that get debates and the people getting their channels really big are the debate bros. Maybe I got to be a bit more debate bro. It just doesn't come naturally to me. I'm just not that kind of person that goes, oh, you won't debate me. You're scared and afraid. There's lots of reasons why people don't debate. So
I see where you're coming from with that, but I will say don't shy away from your personality just because you have to, if you know what I mean.
Well,
I know what you mean.
I know what you mean. It's just, I don't think it comes naturally to me. But I think I do have to be a bit more calling people out for making claims and then not backing them up to actually come in and debate people. Yeah, so the Proverbs guys, for instance, they sort of talk about how they would demolish me and Achilles would demolish me, but he won't actually debate me. It's like, well, okay, cool. So I'm going to call them out. Yeah, you were scared to get in the ring with the Reid.
I'm going to say, be careful. There's a level of narcissism and dishonesty you have to embrace. It seems to be like those debate bros.
Well, you just need what you need is a hype person, and that way you don't have to be that way. You'll get a hype person to be that way for you.
Be my hype woman, Bree.
Yeah, could you see me being aggressive about it? Oh, you're afraid to debate Mark Reid.
I've been in a debate with you. I know how aggressive you can get. Holy crap.
So what I'm hearing is we need to find you a Huxley.
Introducing the wonder from down under. The man, the myth, the legend, Mark Reid. Everybody hold your applause for the end of the debate.
We could paint you gold or something. That'd be kind of some hype for you. Something to make you stand out.
Macho Man Mark Savage.
And Sydney
Ooh,
Raptor,
some big sunglasses. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Sydney Raptor had a question. Why do creationists think that pointing at science points, trying to poke holes using pseudo-scientific analysis and claims other than to awe the gullible? So I guess he's asking, why do creationists think that sort of using pseudoscience to poke holes in science will do anything other than awe the gullible?
I think the answer partly at least lies in the latter half of that question. Maybe other things too.
I think that, so I was talking about this before, and I'll just give my answer just quickly, and I'll put it out to the rest of the panel. So I was sort of talking about how pseudoscience is the faith-based belief is the opposite of science, like sort of, so this idea that you start with a conclusion and then you find out how it fits to it. Because I was watching a Ken Ham video and he sort of said, hey, you start with the Bible being true and then you find all the things to support it. It's very antithetical to science, where you don't start with a conclusion, you start with the observation of the things. It's almost opposite to one another. You start with your observations and then you find out what can explain the observations. It seems like the fundamentalist creationist of start with the conclusion and then go to get all the observations that support it is exactly
anyone who
the
doesn't believe
opposite
that,
process.
go look up AIT's statement of faith.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I've pointed out before. It's a very good point, Andrew. But I think that so I don't think it's to awe the gullible. I don't think everybody is sort of just doing it to make money or get. I don't think that's the case. But I do think that their process for finding the truth is just flawed, and so therefore, I don't think they're doing it for that reason. But I think it's because they have a faith-based position that whatever they believe is true, and that's the process they've learnt to be able to confirm it's true. Now, in science, that would be 100% flawed, right? You would never start with the conclusion and then find the observations to fit it. It would be a flawed system, and that's why it is a pseudoscience.
I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be as charitable. I'd say that a majority of creationist speakers are essentially just lazy and greasy and greedy grifters who see Jim Jones as a role model.
I guess I agree with Mark that maybe we shouldn't generalize. It probably does depend on the creation.
Well, there's no way to know.
Yeah.
There's no way to know somebody's mind and their intentions.
I will couch that is my impression from many of them that I have.
Yeah, that's our impression.
Okay.
Had experience with.
Yeah, and see the problem with that is that then you're going to sound like those creationists that say that all evolutionists are in it for the money, and so yeah, stay away from all those generalizations because they're actually fallacious for a reason, and yeah.
I think fair. Like, I wouldn't. How should I put this? Granted, I feel a lot of the creationists I deal with are a lot that come off as dishonest, so that might color my opinion. But I don't think the majority of creationists, just as a whole, are grifters. I think that a substantial portion of the ones that make money off of it are.
Probably the apologists.
Yes.
Yeah, I think like
From what I
within
have
the case
seen.
of like somebody like maybe Kent Hovind or even now Matt Powell, where they were gullible at some point and they bought into this when they heard it, and now they are pushing the same thing and they've been corrected on it so many times that they know they're wrong. They have to know by this point, but they've convinced themselves that there's some kind of like superhero for continuing to push it and giving others like this false sense of hope that what they're holding on to is correct. So much less to all the gullible, but to attempt to appear as if they're poking holes in science with their pseudoscience, fronting as if it is the real science and that real science is the pseudoscience or it's just being lied about. So there's a little bit of projection in it. I think that maybe there could be a little bit of maybe a little bit of like regret that they didn't know sooner. Such is the case with me, where I was buying into all of this, but I started noticing some things didn't line up, and whenever I started questioning it, I was either getting told not to question it to take it on faith, or just to fake it till you make it, was literally what I was told. And it all seems so dishonest to me, and I realize the closer I look, the less of God I see in his creation. So I think it's kind of like I was fooled at one point, and if I can fool enough people, then we can just make this the truth.
No, I think that's throughout humanity, though, not religion. Not, and one example, which is neutral, so we don't have to bring out the swords, is the if you hear the people that go to those sites that, oh, your great uncle left you $1 million, and all you got to do is send us all this money to release it. And there's actually a thing that people that get tricked by that will actually go and do it themselves. And to say whether they, and so the mind's a complex thing, and so whether they really know it or they're just really believing it that much, I just won't judge. I'll let you guys do that.
Well, it's just that in science, no reputable scientist is going to say fake it till you make it. Like that is such a, like, so, and there have been, don't get me wrong, Dan, there have been peer-reviewed papers that have made it through the process and then found out, hey, that person wasn't telling the truth, and they're retracted immediately. We try and sort of go, well, you have to have strong evidence behind you before we actually say, hey, that's made it past peer review. So, and
that's a problem, because so many times, as a lay person, I'll say, well, see that they look at those scientists say that, and they go, no, that was whether I can't even see any magazine or something. It wasn't a peer-reviewed magazine. It's like, oh, but so that is problem. So one question which will relate is where I've been around this. I was taught evolution biological evolution in the 70s, and so much of it then was like, yep, Miller, Urey, you don't even have to science. That's science. We don't have to go any farther. If you don't believe science could come about naturalistically, you're ignorant or gullible. And so where I tie this, and that's why I'm really interested in this subject of your retroviruses, is because it seemed like, and this is where I might be wrong, was the junk DNA kind of took the wind out of Richard Dawkins' sails, because he was really, junk DNA, that proves we didn't need a creator, that's just our genetic stuff. 98% is junk. And then, of course, it turned around, and then you actually heard Richard Dawkins talking to it was a Jewish guy. I don't think he was religious, but he was saying, oh, see, we don't have all that junk DNA, and that proves that godless, or I'll just say godless. It's not, without a god, evolution is possible, because we don't have junk. So that's and I think those were peer-reviewed papers, that we had so much junk DNA involved, and that was actually the argument I was getting back in the prior to whenever the Genome Project popped out, that see, you're gullible because science has proven through this junk DNA. And so whether or not that was peer reviewed, or that was just people that were gullible thinking that was an argument for a universe without God. So so with that, so with the ERVs, is it so we know we have bacteria in the gut that'll kill us, or in our bowels that'll kill us if we digest it potentially, and so they're actually harmful bacteria, but if we didn't have it, wouldn't survive. So and this is a question, could the ERVs have been something that were necessary? Those viruses were necessary back in the day, and then because of the we're going downhill, whether you believe in godless or creationism, that that they just are not neat, or they kind of poop themselves
What do
out.
you mean by going downhill? What do you mean by that?
Well, I know that so, and you can correct me, because the things, a lot of our diseases, a lot of the, and you mentioned cancers, stuff like that, are because of the junk, not junk, that's the wrong word, of the bad mutations or neutral mutations.
So that's more of a result of us. We live longer now. When humans, first showed up on the scene, we were living 4, maybe 5 decades tops. We're living up to 8 decades now. 8 decades of accumulating mutations is why we see that more these days than you did in the past, right? Like with cancer, anyway.
Diseases.
More
So
chances
I
of
just
mutations
want
longer.
to address that
Mhm.
junk DNA thing first, because
Ah,
there was
please.
a lot of DNA that we thought was junk DNA, didn't do anything, turned out to have a function. But there is about 20% of our genome, of the non-functional parts of our genome, right? So they call it non-functional, that has no biochemical activity whatsoever. Right, so it literally does not do anything. These parts we can take out, and it will not change a thing. Like, they are literally doing nothing. There is no biochemical activity coming from them at all. So when you say, "Oh, we found out that it all wasn't junk," there still is. It's a lot more functional than what we thought it was, but that doesn't mean that all of it is functional. That's where you're getting it wrong.
Oh,
Those
thank
are
you. Yeah,
those
no,
are the
that was me misspeaking. Thank you, though, for the clarifying that.
Yeah, no worries. So there's still stuff in there that has literally no function at all. Your second part was, hey, so when you're using the word necessary, right? So there's a lot of things in humans like ERVs which is necessary for us to be human. Like, for instance, the placental SIRH ERV. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't have placental development. But that doesn't mean something wouldn't exist, right? So the fact that there are animals that don't have that gene and are still doing just fine, in fact, one's very close to mammals like platypus and echidna, means that it isn't necessary for us to survive. It's only necessary for humans to be what we see as humans. Right? Does that make sense? Like, if that didn't happen, we would be something else.
Yeah, but do you think that had something to do with the platypus being kind of its own kind of little, and you guys can use the right word, niche, and that's probably not the right word, its own little guy that is not very, large in numbers, whatever you want to call that, and that the ones that did have that, the little virus guy, that's kind of like the stronger species.
No, because the virus wasn't passed from animal to animal, right? It wasn't passed from animal to animal. It was the platypus and the echidna split off from the rest of the animals, who at that point they all laid eggs because they were moving from more primitive species of theropods. Synapsids, sorry, yeah, synapsids. And then after the split, the ones that became placental mammals were infected, and the ones that weren't infected became the monotremes. Now, there was another split as well between placental mammals or eutherians and marsupials, because marsupials don't have a placenta either. They have a pouch system. So you've got these different types, and I would say it's more to do with isolation than anything else.
Yeah. And I mean, they're endemic, right? Because they're isolation.
Yeah.
In an isolated system, you're going to get a lot of unique endemic. That's what we were talking about. We started to get into earlier with niches, but I don't want to get too much into that because I could talk all night. But
yeah, so when Australia used to be connected to the rest of the world, you would probably have like all of these synapsids sort of just interbreeding with each other and things like that. The split was probably caused by Australia becoming very isolated from the rest of the world. And so you only get certain types of animals on Australia.
And there were monotremes in other places too. All of what used to be Gondwana land, but they couldn't compete with the
mammals,
with the placental mammals. So they were extinct. They lived in Antarctica, in South America, but they went extinct on those continents because they were overtaken by. South America was actually overtaken by a group of marsupials, but at the time that the monotremes were living there. Anyway, not to get too sidetracked, but you can see that that these lineages can break off anywhere and leave a relict population, though, right? That's that doesn't have these markers. That's what we call a sister clade or an outgroup, depending on how you want to classify your organisms. But the important thing is knowing where that direct lineage comes and where those retroviruses come into the organism's bloodline, right? Where the infection happens, so to speak. Like we know with the monotremes that the what was it that you were talking about with the monotremes? That's the milk one, right? They don't have the one to create the retrovirus for the milk.
Yeah.
Or the placenta's at the split for the marsupials. Yeah. Anyway,
yes.
But yeah, those different groups become isolated, and we can identify their parentage lineage back to their last common ancestor using this system.
Very cool. Yeah, no, if you guys seen the Proverbs guy, I'm the designer, creator, award-winning creator. So where I kind of see in design, every time, so through the time, it's been, like 45 years I've been doing it, and not all that I've been that interested in the evolution debate. But so
what kind of design do you see? Like you said, you see design. What kind of design do you see?
Well, I'm landscape artist, competitive landscape design, and so and actually I did a show a couple weeks ago, kind of introducing it. If and I recommend everybody to watch it if you got some insomnia, because I'll probably put you to sleep. But especially if you go
do you know the difference between top-down and bottom-up design?
Yes, but but on that, so I was getting into it with Aiden, our friend Aiden, and so, but still, as a designer, and actually I'll do it. Richard Dawkins, he said, biology is the study of things that look designed, that give the appearance of design for a purpose. And so, we can all agree that there's design aspects to stuff, and then whether or not, then the argument we have would be whether somebody designed it, or the intelligent designer, or it happened just by natural processes. And so my problem is that everything throughout the years, it's become more complex. And then my thing is in the complexity, because you look at the sand. Yeah, throw out some water and some sand in a certain way, it's going to get that pattern. Nothing complex. But now we're getting into really complex systems, and mechanisms.
Complexity isn't usually a feature of top-down design, right? So top down versus bottom up. Just for the audience, top down design is when you will get a system, and my field, if you didn't know, Dan, is sort of in computer and networking. So that's sort of how I think. So when you basically take a so in a network, a computer network, distributed systems, when you take sort of a map of what you want to do and you put down, okay, I want the servers over here, I want this line of host systems over here, I want this in between it, and you designed it. That's top-down design. That's basically going, how do I want everything to look from one person? Now, bottom-up design is generally when you have different disparate systems that you may not have designed specifically for working together. They're just working all by themselves, kind of thing. And we kind of connect them up. So an example of this may be, you have a very a smaller business in the corporate sector, and it's got sort of sales software, and it's got hardware for doing 3D printing, and it's got all of these different things. And then you try to mesh them together. With the top-down design, what you're aiming for is simplicity, right? What you're trying for is to make it as simple as possible, because that's how you want to design it top-down. With the bottom-up, you just get complexity, because these systems were never designed to work together in the first place. Now, these disparate systems will also have things like things that don't work anymore, right? Like junk code, and it will have, things going wrong all over the place because you've tried to mesh two systems that weren't working together originally. You'll have a lot of different issues and problems with system integration, where things will malfunction occasionally. And what we see in biology, and especially in DNA, is kind of a bottom-up appearance. That's what it looks like. It looks like we have these disparate systems that kind of got pushed together. So what you're describing when you're sort of saying, hey, I see complexity, it's, I do too, but the complexity usually comes from integration of disparate systems, rather than what you're describing as there was a designer who designed it all.
Can I get in on this real quick?
Yeah.
Dan, I just want to ask, you're familiar with naturalistic mechanisms that have been shown and demonstrated empirically to increase the complexity of systems, right? So if you're aware that completely naturalistic mechanisms, no designers at all, are capable of increasing complexity in systems, what are you doing?
Now on oh, wait a minute, am I there? Yeah, I'm there. So give me an example of that.
Yeah, I could provide you lots of examples of that. I mean, from RNA replication systems increasing complexity in a way that looks irreducibly complex in the end product. I could cite you studies for that. We could cite just simple studies of, mutations increasing complexity. Natural selection is a mechanism that increases complexity both in a lab and in nature, like that. And there's not just within evolution either, but there are systems like disequilibrium thermodynamical systems that increase complexity just thermodynamically, just with physics, no living systems involved. This has been a known process since the 1960s.
Yeah, I'll have to actually, could you put some of those in the chat here? Because I'd love to look up some of that. Actually, just do the names, and I'll
There's a
Google
new study that just came out last week that I really like, because it was showing actual increase in complexity in just a simple self-replicating RNA system, where literally mutations happen, they increase a diversity of functionality and complexity in this system in a lab. It was evidence supporting the RNA world hypothesis of abiogenesis, just came out last week. It's a really cool paper. I'll see if I can post that link here.
Sweet. Yeah. So as a, and then so of course I haven't. I'm I guess what got Behe stuck when they showed him all the papers, and have you seen, asked him on trial that, hey, have you looked at every paper possible? So yeah, I'm not in that even close to that camp. So but still, as a creator, and you then, Mark, would see that, is that, and I kind of spoofed, but it was kind of fun. It's like, well, you guys are more knowledgeable. So I was told a couple weeks ago, so on the show I did, it was like, well, we do not have Miller Urey, because it was actually brought up as proof. And I go, whoa, wait a minute, that's not proof. I was tricked by that in the 70s. That was stuff that actually had to be separated, or all those little amino acids would have turned into useless mush. And so it had to be taken out of that. And then it was like, oh, well, that's because they did the wrong chemical replica of early Earth's conditions. And I was told, like, well, and so we really don't know exactly. So we really can't replicate, which kind of weird. And then, so because my thing is like, well, if as a designer, Mark, we should be able to see from that first life, what mechanism added so much more information, or whatever you want to call it. I'm open with that definition, just the nucleotide with whatever the parts of the DNA. And so went into that, and it was like, there's still no mechanism that would have taken somebody with no, just like a little cell. We are missing that mechanism that would able to, because I was like,
No,
I love
mutation and selection.
Yeah, just mutation. That's all.
Mutation and
'Cause
selection
you're-
increases the
'cause-
complexity over time. I mean,
when you start to talk information, right, it's a bit misleading, and sort of, so information can be interpreted in a number of different ways, because, for instance, the amount of pulses that a pulsar makes could be seen as information. We can get stuff about the star, like we can understand things about the star from that information. So when you're sort of talking about information, it's very loose when you're talking about DNA.
Yeah, that's why I kind of
new information
left it up.
New information is any new sequence of code, right? Any new sequence of those proteins is new information. It doesn't matter if it's been seen before. It doesn't matter if that sequence exists somewhere. It's new to that organism, right? So if a mutation does it, like a point mutation does a duplication, for instance, like it was ACCAG, and it duplicate that again, that's new information. So we understand what creates new information, and that is mutation.
Okay, good, because they kind of, him and some other guy tried to get me off on a rabbit trail, I thought, because so we're back at that first life, which had to be okay. Oh, what would you actually, if you're trying to communicate what I did, instead of using information, and that's why I kind of like, I kind of left it open. What would you call that when we get added symbols, added parts to the DNA? What would you guys say? How could I say that without sounding like I'm
Mutation.
So just straight mutation?
Yeah, because mutation doesn't necessarily mean things change. Mutations can be duplication, so they can add information. Mutations can do sort of the omission ones that will take away information. They can do point mutations, can switch different letters, kind of thing. So that can happen as well. Does anyone remember what's the name of that? Damn it, I've had a mental blank.
I'm rubbing off on you.
Yeah, I've had a mental blank. Substitution, of course it is. So it can do deletion, it can do substitution, it can do a frame shift. So it can basically do a shift from one to another. There's a whole ton of things that can happen. So when you're talking about any of the code changing in any way, it's mutation.
Okay, so even back at the first life, which, you know, what they say, maybe 200 genes, am I correct in the terminology that the first simple life probably needed at least 200 genes, a replication, you know, eating, you know, energy, all that type of stuff. And so as a designer, and you, as probably it's closer to you with the computer stuff, is to imagine, say, like what the first Apple or HP was back in the 80s or even 70s, I think. And then, so how, as the simple life, so we needed to, like, by the Cambrian layer, we had what, 12 different body types. And so from that first simple life, so it's I want to build a trilobite. That's my thing. I'm going to get all the experts in the world, and we're going to make a Cambrian trilobite. Even without the eyes, we can paint them on, because they're cool. So what I imagine is this guy that has only like 200. Is it gene? Are they genes that he would have had?
You're confusing the last universal common ancestor with like the first life forms here. But if you just want to talk about Luca, you could talk about that. But you're just asking, how do you get from the last universal common ancestor that's a single cell to a trilobite? That's your question?
Well, wait a minute. What's the last? I'm saying the first simple life.
I know you keep conflating the first simple life with the last universal common ancestor.
The last common ancestor between humans and arthropods would be what the deuterostome protostome split, right? So they're talking how long ago is that going to be? It's going to be at least
like the Ediacaran period or something.
Yeah, during the Ediacaran. Mm-hmm.
No, I want the first simple life. What would I call that?
Luca. Well, even this would be before Luca.
Prebiotic life, I guess. Yeah.
No, I want the
prebiotic life doesn't really make much sense, but
yeah, it's kind of a contra.
Like there's not a quick pithy name for it. You can be referring to a protocell, but that's in a gray area that isn't really fully life yet.
It would be a primitive eukarya, right? Like
no prokaryotic
cell. Prokaryotic cell. Yeah,
well, he's asking for before Luca.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I want the first life.
Well, again, as I understand it, there isn't a first life. It isn't like there's a line. Everything on one side of the line is not life. Everything on the other side of the line is life. And there's an organism that represents that line. That's not how it works. There's a slow evolution from complex chemicals performing complex self-replicative processes into very self-organized units that can self-replicate through the utilization of those processes. And somewhere in there, we could say, here's about where life, as we understand it in the modern age, really began. So there isn't going to be a first life form. That's not how it would.
Let's just hang on. Let's just arbitrarily say that we're giving a designation, Dan. I think this is what you're asking. We're giving a designation that this is roughly where we would consider it to be life rather than, as Leo said, complex chemical functions.
Correct.
So you're also saying, I think about 200 genes is about where we designate something to be life. And look, everybody, I get it's an arbitrary designation. I hope you understand that, Dan, that we're not sort of saying, yeah. So it's an arbitrary designation. So the way that gets to a trilobite is what you're asking.
Correct, because that first one isn't going to have, like I said, even without the eyes, that complex body.
We're way before eyes. Way before eyes.
We got, and the answer is, of course, mutation and selection.
Right. So that may mutate, and it may say replicate some sequences of DNA, and it may there might be one that comes along that has, say, for instance, a injectosome, for instance, something in order to transfer its DNA more efficiently, for instance. and that will be selected for because they will be the ones to survive. And it's a slow gradual process from there to multicellularity, because really the huge step that we're looking at between that life and trilobite is that one is multicellular and the other is not. So that's the huge step.
The longest time frame in evolution, really, I mean, if you look at it, is between single cell to multicellular evolution. There's a 1.8 billion years, I believe, is that.
Yep.
So,
and thanks to experiments with algae, we now sort of can see how that occurs. And yeast, yes, thank you. Basically, a colony will form that sort of are still independent, but they will be protective of one another. But then what gets selected, if a mutation occurs that they rely on one another, basically you'll get a membrane being made around these single cells, and they're unable to live without each other anymore.
And there's still organisms that live like that today. Yeah.
Right. And they're incredibly successful because compared to all the other just single cells out there that are just trying to survive, they're working together, they're cooperating. And so, you know, one cell will transfer the DNA, one cell will, I mean, the genetics gets really messy at that point because you basically have gene copying from each other. But what it does do is it ensures a very fast mutation rate. And so the other ones that can't survive are weeded out. And this multicellular creature then proceeds on its way. And from there, you have the development of specialized structures for these cells. For instance, some may specialize in gathering nutrients. We're way before sort of mouths and digestive
and we still have organisms that do this too.
And I would also just point out that we have precursors for trilobites in the fossil record, like Proarticulata, like Spergina, or there's also Eulingia, which has some of the same segmentation patterns that trilobites have. So there are examples before trilobites in the fossil record.
And that would be lower in the Cambrian, right? Not the Precambrian.
No, that would be the Precambrian, the Ediacaran period.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Cambrian starts with what they'll tell you as the Cambrian explosion. This is like a 50 million year period, though not really an explosion. And it doesn't represent the start of life. It represents when life started incorporating calcite into the external structure for protection.
Biomineralization.
You know?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Oh, very cool. So anyway, that's my still wrapping. So we went from this first life to them getting together, but by that time you already had ones that were like carnivorous, right? That's what I was told. That's
well. So you're going to start off with organisms that are either getting their energy from thermal vents or that they're photosynthetic. You know, that they're going to get from the sun. But one way or the other, they're getting energy to function, for their cells to function. Now, when other creatures decided that they didn't want to get their own energy and started just eating the creatures that were getting energy from the sun, that's when you get predation, right? So this would have.
His question was whether or not predation came before the advent of multicellularity. Which, yes, you do have single cells consuming other single cells before.
I wanted to put it in story form, Grayson. Damn it!
I like stories. She must know me. I want it in the video. Okay, yeah. So it quite interesting. So on that though, we have now. Do we have the Precambrian or even farther back of fossil records of those things, or how do we know?
Yep. There's a lot of different Ediacaran fossils and trace fossils of organisms going way.
Here,
way
let me share my screen so you can see one that even kind of looks like a trilobite.
I'm on the ball. I'm right.
Sorry, but that's Sprigina. You can see just superficially. This is from the Precambrian. This is before there are trilobites. It looks pretty similar to a trilobite. It's not exact. This is not a trilobite, but this is Sprigina. It's a proarticulata. It's from the Ediacaran before the Cambrian.
Segmentation.
Yeah.
And
Well,
this is still over a billion years after the first life, though. Keep that in mind, because we had
and no eyes.
Yeah. Well, he was just asking, do we have anything in the fossil record?
Oh, yeah,
before the
yeah,
Cambrian?
absolutely.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know we had like jellyfish things, but yeah, that guy looks like a pretty developed wormish or something.
Estonia, too.
And Eulingia was discovered, I think, pretty recently in like 2019 or 2020 or something. And Eulingia is like really impressive. It has a lot of the similar segmentation patterns that trilobites use. It's kind of like a worm-looking thing from the Ediacaran.
I think that fossil also shows evidence of movement, doesn't it? Of some kind.
Yeah. It has evidence. It's like one of the earliest examples from the Ediacaran of like independent movement. It's seen as being kind of like adjacent to the very base of the arthropods.
So
and interestingly enough, we kind of have these organisms from like 3-point-something billion years ago that are still surviving today. They're actually in my state. They're called stromatolites. And they're cyanobacteria that work together to build these stony structures kind of thing. So they are, in essence, a precursor to multicellular life because they're bacteria, but they build this rocky shell around themselves. And I mean, they're not exactly what led to, obviously, if they were what led to the trilobites, they would be trilobites, but they're still alive today, doing exactly what they used to do 3-point-something billion years ago.
And that's a great example of biomineralization, which Andrew brought up a minute ago, and how those processes happen even early on. And there's stromatolite structures that are billions of years old. Yeah, are there ones in Antarctica, in the Antarctic Bay?
I know there are some in Shark Bay in Australia and maybe some in the Bahamas, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so Shark Bay is in Western Australia where I am. So
they can only grow in very specific conditions nowadays.
You go and look at them and they look like rock mushrooms, essentially.
I just want to say one thing really quickly, if I may. I never truly realized exactly how little I understand with respect to biology and paleontology until I end up in one of these discussions. It's almost embarrassing. I should not know this little.
Well, think of it this way, Leo. That means you can learn even more now.
Yeah.
Why should you? I'm curious. Why that wasn't your field? Your field was physics, right? Your field wasn't biology, right? So it's like you shouldn't hold yourself to that. It's like expecting you to know about like religious philosophy. That wasn't your field.
I do kind of know a little bit about religious philosophy, though.
Yeah, I think Leo holds his own in philosophy pretty well.
I think you understand more than the average person, Leo. Like the average person on the street wouldn't know a lot about, like they'd understand basics of evolution because they're taught in school, but they wouldn't know a whole heap about it. That's I wouldn't know a whole heap about it if I didn't debate it. I had to study up on that, mate. So I think you're selling yourself a bit short, to be honest with you.
No,
like
totally.
Just because you're talking to biologists and biological chemists and stuff. You really should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're being really harsh on yourself. Stop it. Be kind to yourself, Leo.
You don't need to be an expert in everything. Like I actually studied anatomy and physiology and biology for like healthcare. I don't study the Precambrian era and the Jurassic age and the Cretaceous. Like that's not necessary for my field. I don't need to know that kind of stuff. But I mean, if you're an archaeologist, it would be useful to know this stuff. And I don't think the archaeologist is going to be an expert on like inertia and velocity and physics. They're not going to know about that stuff because that's not necessary for their field.
And I don't think I know as much as I probably should about it. I think that biology is a weak subject for me as well. So I totally get where you're coming from, but I think you're doing fine, mate. I don't look. Can we just all give Leo some love? Don't be so harsh on yourself,
Thanks
Leo.
for joining, Leo.
Yeah, thanks for
I'll-
joining.
By the way, it's good to see you,
Yeah.
Andrew. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's
I'll
I
tell him.
don't know how long it's been. Yeah, good to see you.
I'll tell him he's a dummy because I don't want to be the only one in here. Come on now. No, we can all, and I think, that's why you have schools within schools, because pretty much every little subject you could go on for years and years and years and still probably not hit it. So I was just joking, Leo. So it's
No,
Well,
I know.
yeah,
I know.
the amount of knowledge is infinite. The amount of knowledge in the universe is
Yeah.
infinite. You'll never get to the point of
Still
knowing
pretty large,
everything.
so.
And there's
Is
even
it
physicists
though?
who don't understand certain parts of physics. Like I know
Of
a lot
course.
about cosmology. I don't really know anything about condensed matter physics.
Which is fine, and that's why you go to
And
the
I've never
specialist who
even
knows that.
heard. I've never even heard of condensed matter physics. So there
Oh
you
my
go.
God, Mark.
I'm terrible. Yeah, absolutely. Stupid.
Well, I think that's a
Australian.
good thing.
mean-
It's good to have humility.
Yeah,
And just say,
stupid
I have my specialty in whatever my field is. That's the cool thing about like academics and sciences, is that people have different specialties, and you go to those persons who are experts in those specialties. People say, "Oh, that's an
Yeah,
appeal to authority."
exactly.
Not necessarily. It's actually a good thing. You're saying, "Okay, this person took a lot of work to go and master this field. They understand the field." So you trust their understanding, and then you trust the person who is an expert, wherever your expertise is, they come to you for your expertise. There's nothing wrong with that.
I like the analogy. Who are you going to trust to be more likely to be right with your car fix? An actual mechanic or random person off the street?
I'm going to take the
Like,
mechanic
same thing there.
for 101.
Yeah.
For
I
100
mean, we
points,
can
I'll
even
take
one up
mechanic.
it and go a mechanic or a random person off the street that says they know cars.
Right. Yeah,
I
saw it on
never
Google.
trust
that
a
terribly,
random
so-
person off the street that says they know cars. Never trust that. That's a recipe for disaster.
And Mark, if I told you that I know engines
Yeah.
pretty well, would you trust me to change your oil?
Changing oil isn't that hard. Yeah, possibly. I mean, that's not that hard to do, I guess.
What if you needed the turbocharger on your vehicle changed?
No.
Mark, sorry I was a little bit late to this stream, but has the format been
fine.
that we're presenting an argument in favor of evidence for evolution?
Look, I would love for someone to present something. Really, that's what I sort of said. I was going to format it like, and nobody sort of did that. But that's okay. I mean, I was happy with the conversation.
Well,
as well.
can
But if
I?
you want to present? Yeah, of course.
This
of course, I
is
would
one of
love
my
that.
favorite papers that I think shows
Go for it.
pretty irrefutably so this is statistical evidence for common ancestry. So they're directly doing a statistical test between here. Let me see if I can find their figures here. Between here, separate ancestry model, where these trees are like an orchard, but they do not connect, versus the common ancestry model. And they directly test whether or not genetic similarities between different species. I think they just did primates in this study, but whether or not they match better with a common ancestry model or a separate ancestry model, and they did it both at like the family level and I think at the class or phylum level. And they specifically controlled here because the creationists will always say that genetic similarities are because of common design. So they specifically controlled their design for their experiment to account for the fact that they could rule out common design as a potential explanation for these similarities by testing it at the third wobble position of the codon. So like a non-functional area of the genetic code. And what they found here, I think I highlighted it, but maybe I lost my highlight. But they found, I mean, I love how they phrase their example here. I think I had it highlighted and then, oh yeah, here we go. Indeed, the probability of the observed result under our separate ancestry model is about the same as that of correctly choosing a random one atom from all of the approximate 10 to the 80 atoms in the visible universe 21 times in a row.
Yep.
That is the probability that separate ancestry is correct given the genetic data.
So not non-zero. Got it.
You're telling me there's a chance?
can you
I
put
meant to
that up?
say so not zero.
Can you
you
put
want me
that
to?
back to the top so I want to screenshot that? Yeah,
Oh,
you were
okay. I
talking.
can just link it. I can just link the paper in the private chat.
Okay,
That would actually be
but
really
in
cool.
Yeah,
case
just link the paper.
if my
I
son
can-
comes and calls me, because I'm at warehouse right now, and if my son calls me, I'll probably lose it, and I'm probably gonna run. So
Yeah,
Well,
no
it'll be
worries,
on
no
the
worries.
video if you rewatch the video, the title and the
I've
authors and
just
stuff.
put it in the chat as well, so people can check that out.
Yeah, I think this is a great study because it literally like mathematically rules out separate ancestry
think I've
to
seen
an
this one.
absurdly high degree of certainty.
And
Statistically.
I think separate ancestry is sort of like effectively necessitated by creationism, because
Yeah.
creationism posits the notion of original kinds.
Which then leads you
And
to Aaron
that's
Ross
why,
by
and
watching
also
challenge.
I want to mention something on that creationists generally have a problem with how we can't define a species, and I want to point out that in the evolutionary model, we would expect confusion between these hierarchies of animals, like where one is designated something and
Gradual
one isn't,
process.
because it's a gradual process. The problem comes that there's confusion in the kinds between animals that are supposed to be completely differently separated, and that's the problem. It's not with if they're all part of one biological structure, you would expect that confusion, but you wouldn't expect it with clearly delineated created kinds.
Right.
Yeah, so just on the concept of species, it's true that like sometimes like there's no like universally true definition for a species, but it still does have utility as a concept. But yeah, what Andrew pointed out, it's a like evolution is a process of like gradual differentiation within clades. So like over time, like reproductively isolated populations get more and more genetically distinct.
Right.
And so it's like a gradual process. So at what point you decide to say, well, these two are now different species is somewhat arbitrary, but the underlying population genetics of what's actually going on is pretty clear and doesn't change based on how we decide to classify these things. Like
Right.
you do observe like a process of gradual differentiation within populations and subpopulations.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, we're kind of looking at it retroactively, and sorry, this is kind of side tangent, but like it on the topic of species, it's always frustrating when some creationists at least bring up examples we have today of supposed observed speciation events that have happened too rapidly or that match a post-flood hyper speciation rate. And like you were pointing out, Grayson, we could, or when we look at those species like the finches on the Galapagos Islands, I think is one they commonly point to. It's a spectrum of change. So they are in some sense reproductively isolated, but there are other examples we have where they're even more reproductively isolated. So it's a spectrum of change, basically.
I think there's a problem with the creation argument, even in general. The creation argument tries to engage the space of talking about microevolution versus macroevolution. And the biggest problem with their argument is that they're saying, well, because what is the goal of what they're trying to do? The goal of what they're trying to do is saying that human beings are a different kind of animal. They're not an animal. There's some higher evolved being, like there's this special being that's a reflection of God. And then there's all
special creation, yeah.
So this is the argument that's being made. So all of this kind of language is to reinforce that, right? That's their ultimate goal. The problem with their argument, I think, is they cannot prove how a human being is some kind of unique, special creature if they're trying to use the scientific models that exist.
Well, they just want you to
cannot create that.
intuit, right? They want you to be just intuitively say humans are special.
But then they tell us all the scientific language. Like we hear Ken Hovind explaining all of these things and trying to explain all of, he uses scientific language. But at the end of the day, he cannot defend the ultimate point, the ultimate thesis that he's trying to make. Humans are special, unique creatures. If they are, why? How is that? Why do humans have all the same biological functions as these animals? We reproduce the same way. We, relieve ourselves in the same way. We do all the same things that these other animals do. So what makes us uniquely different? We're not uniquely
think-
different.
Well, I think we're special to us because we're human. You know,
Well,
like
yes.
I think that
Of course.
I don't know why that wouldn't be sufficient, because I mean we have some unique traits that are we're incredibly intelligent. Like there's no arguing with that. We're incredibly efficient tool users. We also are amazing sweaters.
But Mark, those are only unique in terms of severity or magnitude of degree.
Sure.
Like they're not unique in
yeah.
terms of like other animals demonstrate similar traits just to lesser degrees. And
We have a lot more endurance than any other mammal. Though,
real
on
quick,
this
in
endurance.
response
And dolphins
to
use sonar.
East's
Like,
point-
yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to highlight the fact that most creationists have no problems admitting that rats and mice are the same kind, and yet the genetic similarities are more different between rats and mice than between humans and chimps. So it's just fundamentally not consistent.
Mhm.
Well, I guess as the only creationist here, I would a couple points. One is just like we can both agree that there's things in the beginning we do not know, and so that's where I would put the kinds. If that turns out to be right, you know, whether it's 6,000 or 6 million billion, we really don't know. And then so the other one was what was your last statement?
About the
the
genetic
kind-
similarities between humans and chimps versus rats and mice.
Yeah.
I got a better one for you. The Iberian eagle has 82 chromosomes. The bald eagle has 66 chromosomes, and they're considered the same kind. Explain that one to me.
Yeah.
Well, I'll explain it is that they don't know anymore. So if it was created, because we do agree that there is evolution, and so so you would have to have known which ones were created. So when they're just like you can't. So they'll try to do exactly what was done with the dude that did the species and division. You know, they're trying to, well, this one looks like it, this one has that, this one. So yes, thank you. And so creationists are getting into that of, you know, oh well, this one is so much like it, so then that had to be the same kind. The other one don't love, you know, like Ken Hovind says, well, it's because they would bring forth. Well, if that is true, that changed because there are species, or I'll use his term, is that there's divisions within kinds that don't reproduce. A Chihuahua's not going to reproduce with a larger animal. And then even if there was some evolution going on in
so that's artificial, though. The traits of a Chihuahua would not be sustained in the gene pool if like human intervention wasn't there, right? Chihuahuas would go. There would be no Chihuahuas in 100 years if humans disappeared, right?
Exactly. And I think that's why we'll agree that 98% of whatever this, I won't throw a number, but so many things have gone
genetics here,
extinct.
so you could probably like he points to physical differences why they can't breed, but
you could artificially
IVF, right? Yeah. IVF, in vitro fertilization, you probably could breed. So the whole point is that he's going, well, they're not going to breed because it can't reach, kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about genetics, and you've got two types of eagles that definitely are so dissimilar that there is no way something with 82 and 66 chromosomes can breed. It's never going to happen.
So
ever.
They've also made hybrids between dromedary camels and llamas, and physiologically, yeah, that's another situation where it just would not happen naturally. They can artificially inseminate a camel, though, to produce a hybrid. And to make it clear, llamas have been isolated in South America for about I want to say 50,000 years at least. In camels, obviously, are from Asia, so these are distantly separated animals that are still the same kind, and they're physically different, right? So where do you draw the line?
Dan, I
Well,
just want to
except
make
when
sure
you-
that I'm properly understanding your response to Mark's example with the eagles. You were saying that because we can't know for sure what the original created kinds were, that these two eagles could be, you don't know, two different kinds. Is that what you're saying?
I would say that with the differences that we see, they probably were two different kinds, but that would be my argument. But
You understand how that kind of at least feels a little bit like ad hoc, where you're just saying, well, if the genetic differences are so much like these between these two eagles, then they're probably two kinds. But if you do that consistently across the breadth of diversity of life that we have today, you get too many kinds to fit plausibly on the ark.
And you get humans and chimps in the same kind.
Yeah, because they're only two chromosomes different.
Right. Yeah.
no, I there's no argument with that, and that's why I don't, and if you guys heard my show, even with the complexity of design, is that my personal contact with the intelligent designer was his unique novel prediction that we are imperfect, and you look at it, and you guys are so good in Bible, and that's a compliment. I really commend you guys for knowing it, not like so many other people, but where Galatians 5, it talks about, if you have the Spirit, you'll have that love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, the rest of the list. And so that is actually a novel prediction that was given because so many other religions were like, no, you just got to be a good guy. You got to work your way up there. And
sorry,
so
how is that a novel prediction? How is that a prediction?
Is that you had 2,000 years ago that said if you come to the thing that, the acknowledgement that you're imperfect and that you call out on the Creator, you will have that happen. Receive
So
the
do you
Spirit.
think there's Christians that have called out on the Creator and trusted in their Creator that are unhappy?
And so that's the other novel prediction, is that we'll always have the
No.
original.
If you could answer the question, Dan, do you think there's unhappy Christians out there?
Oh, I'm unhappy a lot of times. But the other,
Well, then
and it's
how
just
did
not
the
one.
prediction come true?
Oh, because I had it, and there's a second novel prediction that will always have, so many religions like, oh, you do this and you're going to be, you're going to be good with God, all this stuff. The other novel one is that we'll always have our old man, the born nature, the imperfection inside of us. So yeah, with that, we are going to be unhappy. We're going to be jealous. We're going to.
Yeah, Dan. So that's not a novel prediction because people were unhappy and happy already, right? And also people are happy under other religions as well. And Christianity, it doesn't really give any more happiness than any other religion. Like religions in general, people will say, hey, they're happy in this religion. I see you, Isa. I will grab you next, mate. I see you. Sorry, mate. So the point is, for a novel prediction, is it predicts something that hasn't occurred before, or that you don't, we have no knowledge of. And people feeling happy and unhappy are things, we've got knowledge of, and both people are unhappy and unhappy under Christianity. So I don't think that's a novel prediction.
I must have misspoke. It's the joy, which is predicted to be in you always, and then but we still have emotions. Go ahead.
How do you distinguish joy from like the chemical reaction in your brain, like with serotonin?
Well, I want to give Asa a chance to speak as well. Sorry,
I'm
Bree, I'll
sorry.
come right back
Yeah.
to you. No problem. It's just Asa was waiting a while, so I do apologize. I'll come right back to you though. Keep that question in mind, Asa.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. The question I wanted to ask is something that I'm still trying to understand with the creationist model. It's because it's sort of this hybrid of sort of looking at science as well as spirituality. But there seems to be this contradiction that I don't quite understand. You say, we're made in God's image, but then we're like these really flawed beings that are full of sin, and we need Jesus Christ to save us. These things seem to be very contradictory on the surface. And then when I see in the creation dialectic is this argument of that, we could see how, all of these other animals were created, but humans are more special than all of these other animals. And I'm just still trying to figure this out, because this seems like the spiritual narrative does not seem to coexist or work efficiently and effectively with the scientific narrative. So I would like you kind of explain that to me.
Okay, let me try and jump in if I'm going on a rabbit trail that's not answering. So the so Christianity and a lot of other religion aspects, of the spiritual, and so directly in spiritual nature, and that in Christianity for sure it's the we are made in God's image as a spirit. That we have that inside us. So is that a good start? Whether you agree or not, or whether it's true or not, but is that
so like a soul kind of thing?
Go
like
on.
Soul?
Well, in their soul, spirit, yeah, something super. I don't want to do it, but yeah, that's probably a good enough explanation. Yeah, we have that spiritual nature, whether soul or whatever. So is that good so far?
Yeah.
Answering your question, whether it's true or not, whether it's but I just so many times I don't understand, and so I'm not answering properly. So if that's good, then kind of push me on because you had a couple things in there.
Yeah, I basically, and I understand that you could say like maybe we have an essence or a soul. I guess my real crux of what I don't understand with like what Ken Hovind's position and Ken Ham, I'm trying to understand what they're doing in their work. Is they're saying, well, we're proving that the Bible is real. We're using this kind of scientific method that they're using, and I'm not really understanding what is really the answer or the pragmatic element that they're actually getting, because I don't believe that they have proven scientifically speaking that humans are superior. In fact, if we use Christian theology, we see that humans are these very flawed beings that are all completely sinful and need, the salvation of Christ to have our true humanity. So what exactly does this creationist model even give us with a Christian model? This is the thing I'm not understanding. I understand that you said we had a soul, but like I'm trying to go deep. I'm like, how do we get this? How do we get from point A to point Z?
Now, to clarify, are you saying how did we get the spirit nature?
Well, I'm saying, how do we get to this point of saying, of even using this model? What is the benefit of the creationist model, even for a Christian? That's my question. Like, to make it very simple, what is the benefit that we actually get from it?
Oh, so I would say that it's as so many things, it's just that trying, and we're all trying to find, and I think that's a general statement. I would think a lot of people are trying to find reality, and so to me, the thing of where I would put us not special, but I would put us like kind of above. If again you're trying to design from the most intelligent animal to the human, especially in our the line of ape, and just granting that we're just an ape, there's kind of a jump. And so on that, I would say that the reality that how do I explain that I can understand and do science where an ape couldn't, or other apes, and I'm just granting that just for argument, that they're not even close to it. They're throwing poop at us. And not that some humans, go to a prison. I've heard that's a pretty poopy place, but to explain the reality of how we are more, and whatever word you want to say, whether it's complex or more intelligent, more advanced, whatever. I'm not good at the vocabulary. Is how do we get there, and why are we here? Why can we do science and no other creature can? And so that is one big part of it for me. And then, like I said, the other one, when I thought I was a great guy. Everybody told me I was a great guy. Even now, I'll be like, "Oh, you're so nice." It's like, I like being nice. Probably my personality. You might say it's somebody would say, "Oh, that's just the chemical in your brain. You got more of a advanced, rather, or not advanced, just not the tribal, more aggressive type of chemicals in my brain." But I would explain it as that the same thing, that we have a something inside of us different. To me, sounds like, that sounds like the same thing in the Bible, and would say. The other one was, so I'm this good guy, and then I started seeing the Bible, and I was like, whoa, it says that I'm imperfect, I'm not a good guy. And so I was rejecting that. It's like, no, I'm a good guy. And then when more and more I looked into it, it's like, oh, it's not really saying you're a good person or a bad person. It's actually perfect or imperfect. And so through that, I was like, whoa, yeah, that whole thing of I'm far from perfect. And anyway, I think that's going off. Can I clarify any more of that question, or is that getting close?
Kind of there.
Well,
I
I think I would like to have Bree sort of ask her question. We're getting really off topic. Where sort of we wandered away from science and evolution and into theology, I think. But that's okay. I mean, I'm okay with it for a little bit, but I really would like to focus on the topic, if that's okay with everybody.
And if you ever want to do a show on that, I'm happy to be the spokesman for you, because I'm
well, I do interviews if you would like. I can sort of do an interview and we can have a discussion on what your theological beliefs are and why, what I think. I think it might come down to just there's no evidence for what you're claiming, but we can talk about that if you want. That's not a problem.
Yeah,
I would like Bree. Bree's been so patient, and I thank you so much for waiting, Bree. I hope you remember your question.
Yeah, well, I mean, after what Dan just said, I just kind of added on to what I was going to say, because you'd mentioned joy, and is there something that you think is experiential that is not evident, like physiologically? I guess was that the claim there? Because we have the certain chemicals and stuff in our brain that we're really starting to understand that. Certain like dopamine and serotonin's the ones that always come to mind, but that help us to have different emotional responses, right? Like the feeling of joy that you have at a church, for instance, at a church event, might be supernatural, but it might be very natural responses to the brain from being in the situation that you're in, right?
I totally agree, and we can see that from people who do that and experience that and confess that and spread that, and then we find out they're messing with the kids in the congregation, and they got their own private jets and all this stuff. So I would say, so my background, I was the happy kid. I was the baby they said that was always smiling, trying to make people happy. and just a happy little kid. And so that's where, of course, I had all the emotions, but where the feeling, of, that when, and they're different people, whether it's like, oh, you were born again, or whatever you guys use as when somebody, one of us wacko Christians, say we went from darkness to light, or got a new nature in the spiritual realm, or whatever. I don't know. I can't hardly explain it. So I guess you guys probably don't understand either. But so there was.
But other people from other experiences will have that same feeling, though, right? Like other people with other religions, different from Christian or Muslim, or even different from the Abrahamic faith, that can still have this magical feeling of the presence of the divine or whatever. People have that experience on DMT. I've noted. So
yeah, I've had an experience even while not on anything, and just in a really really amazing mood. Like just really amazing. Yeah. I mean, I've told the story before. Like I was just I was having a really good day. I was with my now wife, wasn't my wife at the time, but now wife, at a Sunday market. One of those Sunday markets that just there's knickknacks and stuff, and card traders and things like that. Just one of those markets.
Knickknacks and patty whacks.
Exactly. Don't you dare, Leo. I will ban you.
Farmers market.
What now? Excuse me?
A farmers market?
Yeah, kind of, but just with assorted shops as well, like, people that make their own clothes.
I was literally just
bizarre,
about to
right?
use that word. You son of a bitch.
Yeah, we just call them Sunday markets because they're usually just open on a Sunday, and, you just go there and wander around and have some sort of, falafel that someone's made, and it's just amazing. And
you should try to get him to call it a bazaar, though, just for future reference.
That's a good idea.
The way Mark was
just
like, "Excuse me, did you just call it a farmer's market? How dare you?
How dare you call me a farmer, sir?" So like it was just the perfect day. I was absolutely in love. And there was one of the vendors there, one of the people on the stalls was playing Patchable's Canon in D, and it was gorgeous. I'd never heard that version before, and I cried. I actually thought it was so beautiful. Just the being there. The person I loved with me, holding hands, all of this, sense around me, and it was just a gorgeous experience, with people smiling and buying things, and just a beautiful experience of life, just life happening around you, with this gorgeous music, orchestral music playing, and it was just a wonderful feeling. You can have that about life and about these things and about beautiful sights and nature and things without any God. You don't need it.
Well, and that is the argument. But so going back though to the complexity.
No, it's not an argument. Like you're sort of said, hey, I have these experiences, and I'm saying, yeah, I've had that experience too. What you've described, I've had too. And what people describe as this blissful experience, I've had too. And I have never and do not and probably will never believe in a God. So how does that happen without a God? Like, because your main claim was believing in a God will give you these experiences.
Oh, okay. Good clarification. Is that so? Like you, I like I said, a happy kid, smiling all the time, and so there is the things, the chemicals in the brain. I'm just saying this was and above and beyond my normal nice guy, happy kid,
Your experience.
Newlywed husband at the before that. So it just that
there's the God
it was
coming
different.
into it.
Well, it was the and you probably heard the one where Jesus said, "My yoke is easy, cast your cares on him." And that, so it was a novel experience up above, totally. So that, I mean, you get married. I got married at 20. So yeah, those chemicals were going. It was like the euphoria. Oh, if that's the right word. The happy feelings, the joy, real joyful experience, and all that. It's just this was different. So to try to figure out that reality that it happened, even with me rejecting it to begin with, was the difference. And then, like right now, and we can go into, I guess it's more ethics, not the moral thing, but it's like, why would so I mean, you guys are all seem like really nice people, cool, go about your lives. Only everybody needs the joke at somebody, and Christians, we do give a good thing, and that's why it was really cool. I'm not offended by that, because I'll joke at you too. But that,
well, it's not just that we joke at Christians. That I personally believe that religion is harmful.
that's a great point, and that's what kind of is kind of to me, an evidence of reality that there is something, because and we talk about, and I don't think she's here, but she's talked about it herself, was Cindy Lincoln, and how she had a baby die, or a young child die, and that the religion is
Cindy's
what
a lovely person. Cindy is really nice. Like, so I don't. I'm not sure why you're bringing her up. I kind of feel a little uncomfortable.
I just want to make the clarifying point here that the majority of Christians are not young earth creationists. Like, I don't make fun of Christians, I make fun of young earth creationists. They should not be conflated.
Oh, and that's fine, because you guys make fun of each other too. So I'm just saying that's part of community. I think part of our civilization.
Do you make fun of flat earthers? Do you think flat earthers' arguments are a bit ridiculous, or are you a flat earther?
No, I've been in an airplane, so
because we mentioned Hovind earlier. Well, we mentioned Hovind earlier, and he sort of says flat earthers are ridiculous, they're stupid, kind of thing, which I wouldn't go as so far as to say that. I wouldn't just insult them like he does, but I do think their arguments are really substandard and sort of don't hold a lot of weight. What I'll sort of say to you is that the young earth creationist arguments that I hear are on the same level as flat earth.
Okay, yeah, and that's fair. We're different, but my point was, I won't say Cindy, but it wasn't anything bad. I'm just saying about you who say that, because it's everything she said, and it has nothing to do with Kent, is that her religion gives her hope and purpose that she will see this baby again. And so I think that's a beneficial thing for a person, especially mother, because I don't think you and I can appreciate that much and that would be the biological connection, although I'm really connected to my kids, that people go, oh, just toughen up, when you're dead, but some people are not as emotionally strong, and so I would say religion for them, and some of them that I don't really think are actually religious, but they're using it. I mean, they are. Never mind, forget that. Is that religion is good for them to get them to wake up the next day and be productive. So now the negative is saying, Mark, you're going to hell, and that's just Christian. There's other, as a Buddhist, I say, you're not that good. Come on, Mark.
I cannot express to you, like I cannot explain to you how little people telling me that worries me. Like I cannot explain. Like it would be like, well, it would be like if I said to you, hey, you better watch out. There's a boogeyman under your bed. Like it really is just something that you just go, okay, sure. what are you supposed to say to that?
No, that's good, and that's why even people like evolutions and some creations like, Dan, you're so ignorant, or you're gullible, or this, like, whatever. Not hurting my feelings, because I'm not a genius. I don't think anybody is. I mean, I'm not said not that I don't know all knowledge. So yeah, I am ignorant in a lot of areas. So yeah, good. So, but my point is that some people need religion, and even if it was a religion that I would disagree with, then, but I still think that's a positive thing for them. And that the naturalism or humanism does not give them a purpose to get up in the morning, then...
So what if you question that? What if you question, is it true that that some people actually need religion, or could it just be that they're getting something out of religion that could be gotten out of elsewhere, like a secular community, or something else that would get them out of bed in the morning? Why does it necessarily have to be religion?
Well, so that example is that, I haven't lost a child, and I'm not a mother. From what I heard about it, women even thinking they will see that child again, or I knew one lady that she was in her 80s and she was still just like totally depressed over it, and she was a religious person. And so what I'm saying is that you can't get that out of a humanist who's saying that, buck it up, they're compost. You might be able to see them.
I don't think humanists take that approach.
Here's a question about that lady.
Humanist. I think humanists are not very different than Christians. They just use a different methodology to get to very similar points. I think it would be very bizarre to say that the secular humanist thinks that everybody's going to be compost. I mean, I think that's probably a very nihilistic point of view, and I would say there are people of faith who have the same kind of point of view. So I think we have to be fair. We don't want to straw man that position.
Oh, good. No, that's totally cool.
I gotta ask about
talking about bereavement here, like a humanist would just be like, suck it up. Like,
no, but I've heard that.
No, Dan, stop. That's exactly what you said. Okay, so let's not sort of pretend that isn't what you said. So the whole thing about bereavement is you're using empathy and you're coming together with somebody and sharing in that feeling. We've all lost throughout our lives. We can all understand that level of loss. And a humanist would be just as consoling and empathetic and caring for that person as any Christian, and sometimes more than some Christians who just go, well, they're in heaven now, which can seem a little bit flippant to some people.
No, but my point is, for that person who, if they weren't holding on to the thought that they were going to see him in the next life, would not get out of bed. So I'm saying, as a humanist, you have no answer to that, except for I've gone through it too, whatever.
Why not, dude?
Yeah. Seriously.
Why? It's sort of so just because we lose people doesn't mean that there isn't anything worth to live in life. And if that person were alive, they would want you to continue. They would want you to live their life. They would want you to find more loves. They would want you to, and see, here's the thing. A humanist, because this is our only life for somebody who's a materialist, it's that much more precious to enjoy it while we're here. It can actually be really beneficial to say, hey, they're gone, and that absolutely sucks. We're here right now, and it's important to carry on because A, that's what they would have wanted, and B, it just shows how short life can be.
Do you mind if I share a quick story about this? It's just like a very short. Is that okay?
Sure.
About this particular thing. So I want to tell a little story about a Christian person who became an atheist. He's a YouTuber on he's a YouTube channel called 43 Alley. And basically this young man went to Christian school. He went to a Bible college. And what happened was he had a Jewish rabbi come into his class. And the Christian students were kind of shocked. They're like, how's this, they wanted to know what this Jewish rabbi thought. So first they asked about Jesus. So the rabbi basically addressed it by saying, well, we, in his particular perspective, Jesus was a teacher. It was a kind of an interesting way to circumvent the question. But he said he's a teacher, and he's like, but do you believe he's God? And he's like, well, I think he's a teacher. He's a wise teacher. So then they asked him, well, what do you think about afterlife? If you don't see Jesus as your the Son of God, well, what's your afterlife like? And then he told the story. He said that we live on as memories in the people that we love. So when someone passes away, we live on as a memory. And it's not necessarily like a soul or anything like that. Like this is how, I think 40, the YouTuber took it. But he said, we live as memories. And what happened is this really affected this person who went to, this 43 alley, and he became an atheist after this experience. He's like, wow, there's a different way that you can even deal with this. So there may be a lot of atheists who just say, you know what, I don't believe in souls. I don't believe in any of this stuff, but I believe in memories. I believe in good qualities. I believe in these things. So this person that I love lives with me as a memory. That could work. That's a mechanism that works.
Sure. And
That
I mean, for
reminds
things
me of
like
a
parents,
quote.
you're the sort of continuation of parents. Sorry, Bray, go ahead.
I say it's like a quick quote. It says it means to say you die twice. One time when you stop breathing, and the second time a bit later when someone says your name for the last time. Living on in the memory of the people you leave behind. That's a little bitter, huh? A little bit.
Nitty, welcome. You jumped in. Were you doing a stream after this? Did you need me to
No.
transfer? Oh, okay.
No, I wanted to talk to Dan.
Here I am.
Okay.
And who's that?
I'm Nitty.
Nitty.
You'll get familiar with me if you hang around long enough.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Dan, one thing I'm appreciating is that you're being very generally positive, and you're trying to listen, and you're sharing yourself nicely, and that's really cool. You're not, causing a fuss about what you believe in, how people believe different than you. So that's really cool, because sometimes creationists come on Mark's channel and it's dumpster fire. So I like you. So I was listening to you recount your let's see, were you a Christian when you got married? I wasn't clear on that.
No,
you weren't. Okay. And so you got married. It was a great experience, which, hey, I'm glad you had a great experience. My marriage was awesome too. So you had this great experience. You had a lot of euphoria going on in your life. Were there any other things that you were particularly excited about that were going on at that time too?
Yeah, let's see. I started my landscape career about then, although I wanted to be a nursery guy, just growing the plants, but it doesn't make the money that the landscaping does. But that would have been the main thing then. So, and I actually, back up, because definitions, I was raised in a kind of a secular Catholic family. And so some people would classify me as being a Christian back then. But, being in a more of a secular Catholic family, going to a secular school system in California, I would define myself as not being Christian, but somebody might argue. But anyway, that's only that.
Okay, so how did you encounter Christianity around that time in your life?
Well, actually, my wife's family went to a different church, and so I went to a Lutheran church, and so I wanted to hang out with my girlfriend before marriage, so I'd go to church with them, and then so they would talk more on the, you know, the depravity of men.
Oh, did we lose him a little bit? They talked about the depravity of man. Okay.
Especially you, Nitty.
Oh man, I'm
Yeah,
just
depravity of
I'm
Nitty.
very depraved.
Did I?
So
Did I?
depraved.
You kind of
Yeah, you
dropped
cut
out
out
there,
for a
I think.
second. So
Okay, yeah, my son was calling. My 11-year-old. So, I'll go quick on this, and then so if I top out again, I'll just keep hanging up on him. He's used to that.
Okay. All right.
So, I think you were talking, or was it? Did you answer?
No, I asked how you heard about Christianity.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You said
Okay, yeah.
you wanted to go with your girlfriend, and then you started hearing about total depravity. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, and that's where I was like, you know, I didn't buy into that because I was a nice guy. I was, you know, always helpful, tried to help people out, smiley, and so yeah.
Yeah, you said earlier you were the happy kid, which I'm also grateful that was your experience. Not mine, but hey, you know.
Yeah, well,
okay.
that was in fourth child. Just really quick is I learned quick that it could kind of block the arrows of, say, like my brother who was 3 years older that loved me as a punching bag. So but I was even a happy baby, so that probably didn't affect that part of it, and he didn't affect me out of it.
So you said that initially you weren't buying the message that you were hearing about total depravity. Why is that? So wait, no, I already know why. You thought you were a good person. Okay. So what started to change your mind that total depravity was true about you?
Well, part of it was that I was used to making people happy and being able to, you know, either class clown or just or getting people from being like wanting to beat me up to, you know, laughter. And so that changed really quick when I had a or not didn't quick, but once I had you know, let a woman into my life that then is, you know, telling me the places that I'm not perfect. And
oh, you're talking about your wife.
Correct. Girlfriend and wife.
That's like you got some, you know, other woman walking up to you like, you suck. What's wrong with you? Your husband, your wife.
Yeah, so that would have been, it's like, whoa, no, I'm this good guy. You should be able to be happy and da da da. And then yeah, so that's then getting just more into my own brain, and it's like, whoa, a lot of things that I my motivations would have been if I, and people, and actually right now people are like, wow, you look in people's eyes, that's so cool when you're talking to them. And it's like, yeah, I learned really young to look in somebody's eyes to see if they're about ready to bully you or not. But I got into my personal motivation for why I thought I was so good. And
got it. Got it. Okay. So you're saying that the conflict that you had, or you know, some of the conflicts, I'm not going to say all of them, some of the conflicts that you had in your marriage started changing your mind about the quality of your character. Is that accurate?
I would question it, but that's where the actual, you know, conversion time, whatever, you know, Christianese you're used to, why it was so much of a lighter day, because I was still rejecting it. You know, no, I'll be able to do this, and I'll be able to make her happy here, or I'll change that, and then, you know, I'll my motivation will be, you know, nicer, like a good person really should be. Anyway, that was
okay. So you started to see, and sorry, is it accurate to say that you heard that Christianity could do these things for you, or that a relationship with Christ would do these things for you?
Oh, sorry. My son phoned in again. So repeat that one.
Yeah. So at that time, you're recognizing that you're not the kind of person you thought you were, and you were rejecting the idea that you were depraved, but yet you were hearing that Christianity could change these things in your relationship, or could change these things about you. Is that accurate?
I think you're putting too much thought behind my processes. Hold that for right now. I'll say
It's important though. I'm trying to understand you.
But because I was kind of naive in a lot of stuff, and so yeah, on it. I don't think I really just got it. I wasn't understanding what was going on. That's how I put it. And I actually, I'll think about that more, because that is
well, that's okay. We're way off topic as well.
Okay.
I did want to mention that and bring it down. Rodney wanted to ask something about convergent evolution, but I think we got sort of off on a tangent. And I think I'm going to wind up, because we've gone so far off topic. It's not funny, but Dan, you're always welcome. I would like to talk to you about it. I'm sure Nitty would like to continue the conversation, and
you can come hop over to my
where,
channel.
Where were you trying to go with that line of questioning? Like, where were you
Well,
trying
let's
to?
put that. Let's put that. Put on a hold, because now
I want to go to the end of the road really quick.
Okay.
Grayson asked a good question. Basically, here's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in whether or not there's some kind of process for deciding, is Christianity true apart from some feeling benefit? Some was that kind of considered before converting, right? Is it that Christianity seemed to offer these personal benefits or hopes for you, or was there more to it than that? Did you look into what do people say about the truth of the Bible? What are good reasons to believe in this kind of particular God? I wanted to know if there was that kind of process happening at the same time as your conversion or not.
Yeah, so that'd be a no. So it got down to a point where I was just like, okay, God, if I'm not what if what has been telling me is true, go for it. Let me see, because I'm still thinking I'm a pretty good guy, even though that. And then it was just like and I can't even tell if I was asleep or awake, but it seemed like I was pretty well, that half sleep thing. And a kind of a door opened up, and if anybody's been stirring up a septic tank that was failing, that's kind of what it looked like without the smell. And which was like, okay, that is you, your reality. And so after that is when the feelings came. I didn't change anything, like, oh, now I'm gonna get this, that. Then I got studying, more of the Bible, and then I got like, wait a minute, how do I know this? What I am hearing is right. So I actually go talk to Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and at least Christianity wise, figured that out. But yes, I know Mark wants to stop, and we can continue this.
Well, and I might wrap it up. I'll give everybody a sort of final statement, because I like to do that and let them sort of sum up their thoughts on the stream and the topic of the stream. It's just I really want to stay on topic, and I've let the conversation go, because it's in. Don't get me wrong, it is interesting. Like, it really is interesting. And Nitty, I know you have questions, and I think it's really interesting. It's just not the topic, and I do want to do the right thing by the audience. One thing that I'll just sort of sum up my thoughts. I think that we touched on just two real sort of evidences for evolution, but there are so much more out there. There is a mountain of evidence. Like, it's so much, it's almost overwhelming. And one thing I want to leave you with, Dan, I'd really like you to think about this. Think about whether you are following the evidence to the conclusion, or whether you have the conclusion first and you're fitting the evidence in with your conclusion. Like, really think about that, which one you're actually doing. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Dan. Really appreciate it, and thank you to everybody for being on. First off, I'm not sure who was on first, but Dan, do you want to give sort of brief summation of what you thought, and maybe just a summation of your thoughts on evolution and the topic?
No, and I hope you got. I didn't know the topic, and then the only reason I came on is you said that Proverbs guys are not going to come on, and so mainly I just thank you so much, because I'm, as you can tell, an information hog, and so I love it, and I am one of those ones that I really don't like it when I tell you, oh, and even you called me out a couple times of like, oh, you think this, and you're going, no, I don't. And so I really want to know what you think. So I don't do a Kent Hovind that and all people do that. I mean, nobody's perfect. And so that's why I came. And Mark, I really like your style. And so, and otherwise I wouldn't be here, because, there's other atheists and thing that I talk to, and they're like, oh, you're an idiot, go away. It's like, no, come on. I might be an idiot, but I still have questions. And so anyway.
I think we're all idiots at some point or another, Dan. That's the thing, right? We're all idiots occasionally. It happens.
I do. And so that was it. And I'm going to run. And then my name is actually my channel too. I got some things on landscaping, but you can always just send me a message. You don't have to look at them. Just, okay. Put a comment down. Hey, here's my channel. And I can come.
Your channel will also be in the description, along with everybody else's channel as well. So I've just updated that.
Oh, well, cool. So yeah, Nitty, you want to talk to me ever? Send me your link, and I'll come to your station and question. But I better go get my son to bed.
Go hang out.
No worries, Dan.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys have a great week.
And Bumblebee, do you have any thoughts you want to sum up with? Any final feelings on the whole thing?
Yeah, I do want to say I appreciate Dan for staying here, so we could kind of have someone to represent the evolution, the side that rejects evolution, I should say. I don't know if Dan wants to take that mantle of rejecting evolution, but I guess evolution questioning might be the way to describe it. But I thought this was a pretty fruitful conversation. I really appreciate Mark putting this on. I'd wish more people had from the other camp had showed up, so we could have a real rumble. But it was nice nonetheless. Got off topic, of course. You all know everybody here knows at least I think would know that I accept that evolution is the most reasonable explanation for the diversity of life that we see on Earth, right? That there's a good foundation in the fossil record, that our genetics seem to point to it, and at this point to grant any other proposition seems kind of silly. So that's my thoughts on evolution. If you want to see more of me, I got my own channel, Hive Sci, where I talk about debunk bad science and supernatural nonsense. So come check it out.
Sleeping on the links. I'm sorry. I'll get my act together one day. Okay, fantastic. Nitty, do you have anything to add? Did you want to sum up your thoughts on this one?
Well, first, Grayson, respond to my email.
I do not have an email from you.
What? All right.
Check the spam folder. Check spam folder first before we start throwing.
Anyway, there is something very confusing where I used to have an email that was criticalbasedinquiries@gmail.com, and then I lost that email and had to change it to criticalbasedinquiry @gmail.com.
Let me see who I sent this to.
All the time, people are emailing me, and I'm like, sorry, you're emailing the wrong email address. But I am also just bad at emails, so I could have just not seen it.
All right, you said it's inquiry instead of inquiries?
Yes.
Because you can only ask a single question to that one, though. You can't ask multiple.
Just one inquiry.
Dang it. All right. I'll work on that. But no, I thought you guys were doing a good job with Dan, and the back and forth was cool about addressing, how does evolution play a role in what we do as a social species and how we respond to problems like mental health problems or like even relational stuff, but and not making fun of him for his kinds of takes. It was good all around. This was good. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you guys let me try to take the long way around with the questions.
Okay, fantastic. Who is next? It is Isa. Have you got anything to add? Did I miss Andrew? Am I terrible? That's okay. We'll do Isa and come back to Andrew.
So I think one thing for me is I don't think faith and evolution have to be at odds with each other. And I think that is a problem with some aspects of what people are calling the creation model. And I think that particularly for me is an issue. And that's my it's kind of my umbrance in this conversation. I don't think there's really any problem with those spaces. You could say God created evolution. I don't think you have that problem. I just think that people make a lot of assertions, and it's kind of bizarre to me. That was the kind of questioning that I had tonight. I'm like, how can we have this standard of saying humans are this utmost perfection, and then you're saying humans are also extremely flawed? I'm like, which one is it? Because these things don't really work well together. It's like oil and water. So I didn't really understand that. And I think at the end of the day, if that helps people with their, with their life, and this is what they need to rectify, I think that's fine. I just think it's weird to use theological thinking and trying to use scientific thinking and trying to fuse them instead of just saying, well, here's the science, here's the theology, and they run in separate veins, and that's okay. That's where I stand. Thank you. Peace.
Okay, thanks, Isa. Really appreciate you coming on, mate. Really good. Andrew, sorry to miss you, mate. I don't know why I did that, but you're going to be talking with Grayson. Are you going to be streaming it?
No, I don't have a channel. So.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. Do apologize. I thought you did. I found you somewhere. No, that's fine. Not a problem. But have you got any final thoughts?
Hang around
would you like to wrap up?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think this was a good discussion. Covered the fossil record and other things. I was going to bring up one line of evidence related to protein evolution, but we'll have to do that some other time. But
sure.
Yeah, I think the overall evolution, the evidence for evolution and common descent in general is overwhelming. And yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Mark. Thanks for letting me discuss these things. I know I can get pretty passionate about it sometimes, but I hope I can join more of your live streams in the future.
Sure, absolutely. Not a problem at all. And Grayson, do you want to wrap up? Do you want a few final words?
Yeah, evolution remains undefeated. These creationists, I mean, today, obviously, the guy said that this wasn't exactly his forte, so nothing against him. Yeah. He was a good sport for participating in this, being the only representative for the young Earth creationist side. But like, even the expert, the PhD creationists, they cannot even offer any kind of suitable, like, good argumentation against evolution. Like they can like pass it off rhetorically as being valid, but when you dig into the facts, like, there is no response for the study that I showing it's like statistically impossible for separate ancestry to be true given what the genetic data is. And obviously there is no creationist explanation for things like the ordering of the fossil record, index fossils, radiometric dating. There's the heat problem. There's literally countless issues with creationism, and creationists are unable to identify even one valid problem with evolution as a theory. So, yeah, it remains undefeated. This was quite, I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised, but all the creationists that think, I get the DMs, guys. I know that there are creationists out there that think that they can easily disprove evolution. I see y'all commenting on my videos. I get emails from you people saying like, oh, here, I'm going to quote one because I was supposed to be having a debate last night with this guy, and then he never emailed me back. And he started off so strong. He literally said, and this is a direct quote, I'm reading from his email now, "I am the epitome and the apotheosis of evolutionary biology scientists. We have zero evidence for macroevolution. I shall debunk you." Like, I literally hear talk like this from creationists all the time, where they talk this huge game. And then I emailed like, hey, here's the time and place. He said, sure. And now guess what? He's nowhere to be found. He hasn't responded to my emails in the last few days. This happens all the time. You talk a big
Do they
game.
always talk like Batman villains?
Yeah. Like they're in my DMs talking all this good, and then when I try to schedule something, all of a sudden they drop off the map. They start ghosting me. So this is the case for all the creationists I've found. None of them are able to offer an actually rigorous, valid, and empirically supported criticism of evolution, or much less debunk the theory. So my DMs are open, guys. I gave my email earlier, criticalbasedinquiry@gmail.com. So
hey Mark,
they're open.
Slide into Grayson's DMs. It's open. You heard him. It's all open. Go for it. What's up, Andrew?
Would you just quick request mind highlighting Nitty's most recent comment? I think just real quick. From the side
Nitty's
chat.
most recent comment.
Oh.
Where?
Oh my God.
In private chat? I don't think I can do that.
No. YouTube chat.
In normal chat? Why do you do this to me? Nitties.
I'm sorry.
Nitties.
That
How far
raises
back
his
is it?
anxiety level.
How far
I'll
back
post
is
it again.
I need a producer.
Yeah, thanks, Nitty.
Oh, hang on a sec. I think
Sorry,
I
it
see
was just a joke I was going to make.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, so yeah, Jim Bob, like that debate, sort of impromptu debate you did with him, Grayson, that was amazing work. Like that was absolutely
For real.
it was a absolute slaughter. Like the fact that he took it down afterwards is just hilarious to me. That's just and you know, it's stuff like that that definitely makes me suspect that some people aren't being good faith when they have a debate, give their arguments, give their presentation, and then they take it down. Like it's sort of like, well, you know, you haven't done a good job. Your what do you call it when you pick and choose to make your curating
Cherry picking.
your content to make you look good, basically. So yeah,
Cherry picking.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's more
No, it's
curating.
curating.
It's why I always play the room rumbles I do in their entirety. So if I go into a room and get slaughtered, I'm gonna show it. You know, like I think it's only fair. Yeah, I just, you know, I don't like the idea of editing it because, you know, that's just making yourself look good. But
I'll just say there's only so many insults and amounts of bad faith that I can stomach, which I feel like is too much even then, to be honest.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone for joining me. I want to thank all of the panelists who are Leophilius Bree from Hive Science, Atheist Junior, Rodney from Tell Me More, Issa Kabir, Grayson from Based Theory, Andrew Cumming, Nitty, and Dan Pozzi. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute blast. We'll have another evolution one. We couldn't even cover 1% of it in this amount of time. It just wasn't possible. But the sequel will be coming. You know, next time I will call it The Evolution of Bigfoot Jesus, just to make people annoyed. But thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget, be kind to yourself. I don't believe that anybody is entire darkness and stuff. It just doesn't exist. It's just not a thing. We do good things, we do bad things, but when you do something bad, acknowledge it, but be kind to yourself and acknowledge that you just made a mistake. It doesn't make you a bad person. And be kind to others, because other people will make mistakes as well. But thank you so much, everybody. And I hope you have, I feel like I'm missing something. I really do. I always miss one thing. Did I do the redirect? I didn't save the redirect. I'm going to send you to MC Toon, who's doing a flat Earth review and picking apart Witsit. So get ready for that. Get ready for that. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, everybody. And I'll see you. Oh, yeah, tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm actually moderating a debate on my channel. So Kentucky Atheist contacted me and said, can you moderate a debate between me and Carl Adams? And in a fit of madness, I said, yeah, sure, why not? So if you want to, come back tomorrow and we'll be having a debate. And the debate topic is, was there a global flood? So it should be interesting, if nothing else. Yeah, and on Friday, I've got Fundamentalist Fails again. I'll have something new for you. So always something happening over here and some fantastic people. But thank you very much, and I will see you in the next one. You